Okay, so where's my controller? So this is a guy that kind of has been done on a bit of short notice, but I am doing this primarily because it kind of is something that needed to be done for a while now. But this is going to be a beginner's guide, how to start somewhat learning how to both play this game as well as how to maybe somewhat effectively speedrun this game. This is a very, very crazy momentum-based game. And I am Dagrin, and hopefully this guide will become helpful to you. There's going to be a bit of referencing back to another run, not just, my personal advice, but I'm also going to be utilizing Mike 89's personal best on easy mode, which is a 28:53 run. And honestly, if you don't want to sit through this entire tutorial that may or may not span over an hour or two, you can always just watch that run and try to learn off of it. I did feel, though, that there are a couple of things that I did somewhat need to touch on. So, without further ado, I'm just going to... Hold on here. Just trying to... Oh. Give me a second here. Just gonna... Oh, no. I actually can't move this thing any further. I was mistaken. I thought I could actually move that camera a little bit. Alright. I think before, though, we get started, I'm going to start by trying to somewhat teach the basics for those that have never played this game before. So, obviously you can change your control scheme to whatever, so, that goes without saying. And really, your only two actions is a jump and an attack button. The jump button really shouldn't need any explanation. You can jump anywhere. You can even stop your momentum and move back. It's actually a very responsive sort of control. It's very responsive controls. What's more important, though, is the attack button. And what the attack button does is it throws out this sword that also subsequently throws out a projectile. So I'm spinning the sword, and you can see the projectiles coming out pretty regularly, but if you actually time your sword swings, you can actually really get a nice steady stream of that projectile too. So that's pretty important to understand. But the most important feature of the attack button is the charge up button. So you might notice right up here, let me get this mouse cursor, that there is a meter bar right above the health bar here. That happens because you're holding the attack button and charging up this meter here, which is the rocket boost. And what the rocket boost does is many, many things. You can kind of just let it go and you do this spin attack, which surprisingly does not do much damage, contrary to what you might think. But the more important thing is, if you hold a direction, any direction on this D-pad, you will rocket boost that direction. So, say I'm in the air, I'm going to rocket boost up and left. And that's how you do it. It's a very, very nice sort of control scheme. Like, you have full reign of where you want to rocket boost and stuff. Oh yeah, and here are the pigs. Those are your main enemies. I guess the next thing I'll probably talk about is the ground boost here. This little thing here. Okay, actually, before I talk about that, when you do an aerial boost, once you exit out of aerial boost, you'll enter this state here that you see Sparkster, like, sort of in a panic sort of sprite here. That's his panic state. He's completely invincible while he's in this state, but he actually cannot do anything right now. Like, you're helpless in this state. You can't get hit, but you also cannot really control yourself past that point. Once you've unleashed a rocket boost, you can't stop your momentum. You have to wait till you land on the ground of some sort. But you are completely invincible while you're in this panic state, at least until you touch the ground here. So that's obviously something I'm sure most beginners will probably take advantage of throughout their runs, throughout the learning process of trying to play the game, learn the game, even learn how to speedrun the game. But that's the general gist of how to, that's the idea behind the panic state anyways. So the thing with the ground boost, though, you don't get the panic state. So your invincibility wears off a lot quicker on the ground boost here. So, but you might also notice that you're sliding a whole lot more with this ground boost here. And this sets you up for another little good piece of tech that you may or may not take advantage of, at least starting off, and that is the art of possum hopping. So watch carefully. You see that I jumped as soon as I exited out of ground boost phase. That is possum hopping. It keeps your momentum going. And that's the general gist of the speed tech, pretty much in the most basic terms possible. So that's really it for pretty much the basic mechanics. So I don't really have to specify really anything else at this point. Now we can just kind of go in through and detail every bit of challenges that you're going to be coming face to face with in this run. I'm not going to be showing anything crazy. If you've seen my personal bests on like leaderboards and stuff, you probably are expecting really crazy stuff. Don't in this tutorial. I'm going to be trying to show the best. I'm pretty much going to be just showing what you can do with these abilities and what to expect in each of these stages. So earlier there, you saw a whole bunch of pigs and how I was able to rocket boost straight through them. Again, like I said, while you're rocket boosting, you're completely invincible. Pretty much everything is going to get destroyed, that whatever crosses your path. And so I took advantage of that. Those were kind of a row of pigs there. They do a single heart of damage, which you can imagine with this entire life bar. It doesn't seem much, but it does add up pretty quickly. So now we're on to this part here. Now you see all these pigs with kind of in groups on, I guess, jeeps, vehicles and stuff. Here's another one. I like to use this tree sort of when I kind of liked this tree starting off when I started learning this game. So I'd imagine this is a good place to kind of chill out and just wait for them. You could actually just walk right into them and start sword slashing them. It's actually very, 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 very effective tool. The base sword, this sword slash here, the base sword attack from melee range is the highest damage dealing attack in the game. Your projectile is decent damage, but it pales in comparison to the base sword damage. And the same holds true for the rocket boost. It's actually surprisingly weaker than the base sword attack. So something to keep in mind. But we've dealt with the jeeps, so now we can move on. And this is where the game is kind of trying to tell you, you can't get past this. You have to learn how to rocket boost. So no matter what, you have to learn how to rocket boost in this game. So that's a nice little touch of the level design. So now we're coming up to this section here, and you may have just saw the pig there that may or may not. Okay, there. I was about to say, wow, this is probably the best luck I've had for enemy spawns, but you can see this section here. They just keep raining down from above, and you got basically the idea of this part is get through it as fast as possible. Just if you have to just do the rocket boost and just keep walking forward for some sort, just do that. You don't have to possum hop. You don't have to do anything technical. Just kind of do stuff like that of sorts. I will try to refer back to that section in Mike 89's run. So now we have these ATSTs, and there's about 4 of them. You don't have to kill them with the base sword. You can see how quickly that ATST died there with the base sword. And but I had to show off that you can kill them with the projectile too if you're not feeling as risky of sorts. And once you kill 4 of them, you'll reach yet another one of these impassable things without rocket boost, and then you'll end up in this area here. And if you had some trouble in the first section, don't worry, there's lots of health, a lot of sparkling apples. And you should be able to fully replenish your health if you grab all of them. But that's the idea behind... That's kind of the idea of this section. Just if you're low on health, just grab the health. And you don't have to really think too much about it. So, now we're coming up to this little section here. And you'll notice the stage sort of was scrolling for me. And now it's stopped. I'm not even centered on it. What's going to happen is, there's going to be some pigs that will spawn once I pass by this little bush of, or this little bit of grass here along the mountainside. And then what we're going to end up doing after that, actually, to start things off, as you're approaching the screen, you'll want to make sure you're charging Rock Boost. And why you do that is very apparent. So we're going to just go across. Once you cross past it, there you go. You saw that it spawned these red pigs, or these red armored pigs here. And what they're going to do is they're going to jump. These two are going to jump over on top here and over to this side. And then these two will do the same thing and jump, except they'll jump to the other side. So what we're going to do is we're going to wait for them to all jump up here and then rocket boost all of them at once. Kind of like that. I almost missed one of them, but that's the general idea of dealing with this pack. And we also want them to land and just run off the screen. If you try to hit them, they'll end up getting knocked up straight up and then straight down. And that's actually quite a huge time loss. Well, not a huge time loss. Just, it's seconds gone for no reason, really. Okay, so now that we are past that group of pigs, we have our first mini-boss of the game. And this mini-boss here is kind of different from a lot of bosses, in that once he gets hit with any point of damage, he will immediately activate iframes. So the base sword is actually not the best way to handle this fight. It is actually the projectile that has the best time handling this fight. Obviously, you can use the rocket boost, but I think given the volatility of this fight, or given the type of fight that this is, it's probably better to just, use the projectiles. But that's how you deal with that. He has a cannonball attack, as well as a flamethrower attack right here. And this can be a bit of a problem, but the projectile can deal with these cannons. Of course, I'm getting hit. I want to try to show off that you can get rid of these cannonballs, but obviously I'm not doing a good job, so let's do something different. Let's just rocket boost over here, be a total lamer. And you're going to see that this guy cannot go past a certain point in this fight. Let's see if he goes all the way back. Yeah, there you go. That's as far back as he will go. He'll never hit me from here. We're actually in a totally safe spot. You see the cannonballs don't even reach us. And so we can just literally peck him off for days just by getting behind him like this. This is something I will do in my runs. This is something that's, I would consider the best and fastest way for most beginners to deal with it. And I mean, if you don't want to take a hit, just simply do what I just did in this little tutorial here, and you can just rocket boost past him. Like that. Well, not like that, but, like I showed earlier. So that's phase 1, and now we're on to phase 2. This is probably the phase that will probably cause more beginner runners to have a little bit more trouble, but he's going to be kind of bouncing around like a ping pong ball all around this screen here, and it's just a huge mess of a phase here. But if we do everything properly here, hopefully this won't give too much problems. Just going to wait for him. And we're going to use this little projectile here to kind of just cheese him out a bit. Sometimes it won't work like that. Just, you can just kind of just play a little bit of tennis with him and just do that. Now, that's the casual, easy way of dealing with them if you're struggling with that fight at all. Now, before I continue, I'm going to turn over to Mike 89's run, and I want to just show you his speed strats from the beginning of this level to that point, because I do think it's nice to learn off of what an actual run looks like when it's actually trying to be done somewhat fast. And I'm sure you might find this helpful too. So first I'm going to do that. And then there we go. So this is Mike 89's 2853. And we're going to, it's pretty much going to start right from the get-go once he proves the difficulty. And you'll notice he will do a few things differently from what I showed. Obviously, he'll utilize the possum hop in there. And then you can see he kind of just goes right in and just starts sword slashing as the vehicle comes at him. Again, you are pretty safe to actually do that as long as you know how to properly time your sword slashes. So that's an important thing to understand. And then and he gets to that side there so that he's properly set up to rocket boost straight up like that. And he's going to just walk through, just going to ground boost, walk for a little bit, ground boost, and then when he believes he's going to get past the section, he starts possum hopping to try to keep that momentum and get out of that section with the dropping pigs as fast as possible. And then, really with the ATST sections here, the walkers, the mechanical walkers, you can kind of just do your own thing. It really just try not to get hit by the ATSTs. But even if you do, you have all those apples to hang with. All right, so here's how a true master deals with this from the front here. You can see how he utilized the sword and the projectile to get rid of those cannonballs, and was able to kill the first phase relatively effortlessly. Now, here's the important part. Phase 2. This is... I showed you the really lame way, the casual way of doing it. Now you're going to see the quick way of dealing with this guy. What's going to happen here is he's trying to maintain... he's trying to somewhat be in a certain specific place in order to get this mini-boss to spawn more or less in this upper corner here. And then he's going to try to call him out with a projectile hit and then ricochet him back into that corner. And then once the mini-boss bounces off of the wall, of the border wall here, and the ceiling up here, Mike 89's going to meet up with him and then have Sparkster's sword slash just kill him pretty much as he's going straight through him. So let's see if we can show that off. Or let's see if there we go. And then you can see, even though he went straight through him, the sword slashes really offer a good sense of protection. Anyway, that is how one can do that level somewhat fast. So, getting back to this now. Oops. There we go. All right, now, heading back to the game itself, in my play here, you can actually just hang out on the very side of the screen and spam attack, and all these enemies are just gonna get smoked. You usually, like, sometimes you might take a hit from one of these enemies, but it's pretty rare, and I don't think they do enough damage to really worry about it. So what I do is I make sure Sparkster's little hand here has just a tiny little distance from this water here. Like, establish this tiny little bit of a gap here and just kind of park yourself right on the side here. And that's what I do for this section. And literally from there, I just spam my weapon, my sword. And then once I know that the enemy stops spawning, I'm gonna immediately head towards the other side of the screen. So I'm gonna listen for it. Okay, the enemy stopped spawning. So that's when, once you notice that the enemies stop coming and spawning, That's when you want to start heading towards the side here. Now, as for where you want to position yourself, I kind of use Sparkster's nose here and kind of line it up with where the water starts to become less darkish green and more like white. Like basically the very edge where the color starts to change is where I like to line up Sparkster's nose. I'm a little bit on the low side here, but that really doesn't matter. The idea behind this entire quick kill here is to take an intentional hit and abuse your fairly long iframes. That's another important thing and you want to learn about Rocket Knight Ventures is your iframes are surprisingly very long. Like you have a lot of iframes to work with. So by positioning myself here, I'm going to take an intentional hit, get knocked down to this corner here, and then just start sword slashing this serpent that's going to show up right about here. So let's see if we show that off properly. And with carefully timed slashes of the sword, you could pretty much kill him just like that. It's really quick, it's really effective, and your iframes will last more than long enough. And he only does about 1.5 hearts, so there's not really too much risk in just taking that intentional hit, especially if you are going to play the first mini-boss extremely safe. And that's that fight. Now this section here, this is probably the hardest part of level 1. Specifically this hallway to do in a speedrun, but doing it casually, it's not too bad. So what I'm going to try to do for this section, I'm going to kind of do what Mike89 does. I'm going to walk forward, and then I'm going to jump up and grab this banana. Obviously, you want to get health where you can. This is a beginner's guide. Don't be ashamed to take this banana. Jump up, and then... Okay, well, I didn't show that off properly, but... Basically, the idea is I was supposed to appear and then jump over there. I'll show Mike89's video just to show a proper idea. Then I want to do that, and then that allows me to charge past the second pig, and while I'm still in iframes from the panic state, I get past this guy here. So that's pretty effective. And as for this guy, I do the standard projectile sword slash, like that. And I deal with him the same way. And then once I attack him, I'm also holding the attack button in order to charge up my rocket boost. And you can see these arrows here. They're kind of just indicating that in order to get up there, you want to ricochet here. You want to ricochet off here. They basically just bounce off these particular walls. So let's do that. And see you get up there just like that. It's actually a nice little touch. And now we've entered our second auto-scroller. And this part can be a little tricky for beginners. This part you probably may have to practice a little bit. Unfortunately, I know exactly what's coming, so I'm not going to struggle at all with this. You also might notice that this is where speedrunners choose to take intentional hits in order to drain their life. And this is important for a very specific reason. But I imagine for beginners, I would advise against doing that, so I'm not going to do that here for this particular tutorial. Once you've gone through 3 phases of those, of that fire thing going about 3 times in each of those phases, you reach this room here. And this room is pretty simple. You just use the diamonds to indicate where to rocket boost to. This is yet another good room to learn how to control where you direct your rocket boosts. So there you go. And then follow the diamonds again. Follow them again. And see how easy that was. That's like level 1 does a really good job of introducing how to properly understand how to use your rocket boost mechanics. Now, this room here, for beginners specifically, I just recommend doing things safely. Like, just go through this and attack whatever comes your way. Like, do not try to do speed strats here. This is probably... Okay, well, I don't want to call... Now that I think about it, this is the hardest room of level 1. I take it back about that other time I said the other hallway in the castle was harder. This one's the hardest one to do properly because rocket boosts have to be very specific in timing. You have to rocket boost in a specific way, specific direction, with specific timing, or all sorts of bad things can happen. It's just a very janky layout, this room. So learning how to do it fast is generally not the recommended method. You could try to use rocket boosts. You could play around with the room if you want in practice, but that's really all I can tell you. I mean, I would have to do an advanced guide to kind of tell you what I look for and stuff like that, but this is a beginner's guide. I can't really go into too much specifications. However, what I can say is the next couple of rocket boosts, however, can be done by just about anybody, and it's pretty safe. But what we're going to do here is I'm going to jump and rocket boost diagonal and right towards this single diamond here. And it will cause me to bounce off and grab all those diamonds and land here. Now, of course, when you unleash that rocket boost, make sure you're holding the attack button while you're waiting to come out of rocket boost formation and go into panic state, because that allows you to charge up your rocket boost. And that's very important for this part, because what's coming up here, you want to try and get into this little pocket here and hug this little corner here. And then once you know the rocket charge is going to be fully charged up, you jump up and then diagonal left and down onto this little step here. And what doing that's going to do is this. Gets you past those two pigs. Now, of course, you don't have to do that. I mean, you can just, if you don't remember to let go of attack button to unleash a rocket boost and then hold it as soon as you let it go again, you can just take this room somewhat the safe way. So, in the interests of trying to show off, a more safer way, and one that I think more casual, newer runners will probably do, I'm gonna die intentionally here and just kind of trying to account for all the possibilities. So here we are again. Gonna attack everything that comes at me. Knock this there. Attack them. Oops. So, see, that's the kind of mistake I expect most casual players to make, is accidentally rocket boosting when they don't want to rocket boost. That's somewhat of a fear you might have to deal with over the course of learning this game. But that's that room. Now, this next room here, there's going to be a nice little surprise waiting for Sparkster. But as it turns out, dealing with this... Okay, I'm going to just let the hand cam kind of speak for itself here, but I'm basically holding right. You see what I mean? That's literally all you have to do to deal with this guy. The poor old guy, he just the most useless enemy there is. But coming up after that is this little section here. Again, the diamond's doing a very good job of showing where you want to rocket boost, what direction you want to do it at, when you want to do it. Again, kind of just setting the benchmark of where you want to rocket boost and kind of just learning the basic idea of how to control your rocket boost. So we're going to follow its lead. That's just kind of the way you want to deal with it. And now that we've reached the boss, I'm actually going to put this down, and now I'm going to turn back to Mike 89's run. I'm going to show how Castle is actually done in a in a semi-fast sort of way, but also in a somewhat safer way, as well as show you just what, a runner can get away with without really having to put themselves in too much risk. So let's see. All right, perfect. So it's going to crash in the wall here. And you're going to see, first and foremost, as soon as he grabs that banana, he rocket boosts and then intentionally stops his momentum. And so he jumps over this first pig and uses this wall as a way to make sure he gets over this pig, like that. Then he rocket boosts past that and then slashes these next three pigs here. And then continues on his merry way. Now, like I said before, Mike 89, this is why I had to make sure to specify my gameplay into the equation, because what Mike 89 is going to do here is he's going to drain his health to half a heart. And this, again, this is something I cannot recommend for newer runners. It's very risky to do this, because I expect most new runners to make very, very bad mistakes during the last stretch here, especially potentially on the last boss of this stage. Yeah, you can see he's kind of doing things kind of the same exact way of sorts. Oh, and then he rocket boosts straight up like that. Let's see if he does, yeah, he just walks right under him and then uses the diamonds as a guide. And that's kind of the gist of how you want to do that whole entire section. Again, ignoring the fact that he drained his health to half a heart. If you're wondering why we drain it to half a heart, it's because of the results screen. There is a life bonus that comes at the end of each results screen. Of course, the less health you have, the more time you save. If I wanted to think of a proper example, I'm sure everyone's played Castlevania, right? You know how your heart count is very, very important to make sure that you have a low amount of hearts left at the end of each and every single Castlevania stage. This is pretty much the same exact thing. We want to drain our life down so that the results, so that the point screen, the whole tallying, takes up less time, basically. So now that I've showed that off, I'm just going to make that disappear for a moment. And now I've got to show a little video. If I, let me just see, where is it? If I can just find it. Okay, yeah, here we go. So I have to show this off because obviously I'm not going to show it in my gameplay feed. So here's a little pre-recording of the first boss here. But you could see the idea behind this fight is he has a very, very standard sort of pattern. This is all scripted, this entire pattern here. But so basically, he will always start by slamming down the middle, then slamming down on the left, slamming down on the right. Then he'll pop out the left and pop out the right, slam through the side of the left side, then on the right side, and then slam down the middle. Each and every one of these things, besides the little quick pop through on those two little quick pop throughs on these two holes here and here, you can get 2 hits on each of these times where he bursts through the castle and tries to slam into the opposite side of the room. If you do everything correctly, let's just play this whole entire sequence out here again. If you play the fight perfectly and hit... Okay, actually, I forgot one important thing here. Much like the mini-boss with the pig on the tank, this thing here, he's he once he's hit by something, he actually has his iframes activate after that. So you can't use the base sword on him either. So that's also something to take into account. So projectile once again is the MVP of this fight. And each of these phases where he extends out his neck, you can get 2 hits with the sword projectile on him. And it's very important that you do this because past a certain point, he's going to do an attack where you're going to lose like 15 seconds for it. And I'll show that momentarily. But in a perfect fight, he will die right here. This is where he will die if you play the fight perfectly. Of course, I don't expect that to be the case. And even if you don't play it perfectly, you have another shot to kill him with 2 more hits. But otherwise, you're going to face a little phase here if you do not... Oh, okay. Actually, that's not entirely true. If you actually have 1 hit remaining what he's going to do is he's going to pop out of here. But if you have more than one hit, if this guy has more than one hit remaining on him before he dies, he's going to do this. He's going to chill out at the top here and throw all of these ads here. He cannot be hit while this happens. So you are at the mercy of waiting for this entire thing to finish. Until this thing pops out here, and then you kill it, and then his whole entire attack round here. This is where the fight really becomes a problem, is this tail here. You can notice I'm struggling with dealing with this entire phase. Not just once, but twice. So here comes the tail again. You can see how problematic this tail is trying to even approach this fight. Which is why you do not want it to ever get to that point. You'll see that attack a whole lot more in higher difficulties, where it becomes a major problem. But that's kind of just the fight. It's all a standard sort of pattern of sorts. Like, all of this entire movement pattern he's doing, this entire attack pattern he's doing, it's all the same. It's always the same. The only thing that changes is if you have enough damage registered on him, that he, instead of doing this, pops out on this side here that I'm indicating with my, hopefully, indicating with my mouse cursor here. So that's kind of how the fight works. That's kind of what to expect in the fight itself. It is kind of important because I do expect people to mess this fight up. It's not a hard fight, I expect, but it is very important to practice this fight, especially when learning. I know that when I started learning, this fight was a little bit of a problem because I would always find myself missing hits with the sword projectile and then just generally having a really rough time. All right, so that's enough wasting everyone's time here. Let's bring this back up. So now let's show what it actually looks like. So I take 2 hits there. Take 2 hits here. Oops, I missed. I missed that too. Okay, so you're kind of seeing the kind of mistakes that I would normally expect a casual and a beginner runner to make. But you have to anticipate. All right, so now you're actually going to get to see what he gets to do, hopefully. Yeah, see, so that's what I mean. Even though I couldn't kill him when he popped through the ground like that and retreated, he didn't do that long thing at the beginning. Instead, he popped out of there. That's because he was a hit or two. He was a hit from death. So very important to understand that even if you don't get the best possible results, you're still going to be okay. But that is phase 1. Or, that is stage 1. Whew. That took a lot of describing. But level 35 is... level... Jesus. Level 1 is a pretty difficult level. There are a lot of things to kind of cover, of sorts. But thankfully it'll be a little less complex from here on out because there's a lot more auto-scrollers. So, now we're on to level 2 here. And this fight's a little bit interesting. So I jumped up and did some damage there. That damage did no damage. So the interesting thing about this fight is that you cannot actually do any damage to him until these 2 arms up here start swinging down. Once they start swinging down, then you can start doing damage with them. So keep that in mind. Otherwise, this fight's more or less... Otherwise, this fight's kind of a pain. You can see, just by trying to demonstrate that one thing, I kind of really messed up this fight really badly, but... And I'm not going to be able to show that off again, but... You know, really, the only idea behind it is just jump in there and do some good damage to his nose. And really, there's no reason to not just get in there with the sword and just start hacking and slashing the nose like that. Because coming up here is a banana. Full health. Pretty easy stuff. Here's a nice little one-up if you need it. And if you want to casually learn how to get up here, it's kind of a pain. But probably... Okay, you get out of here. I want to show off here. Get out of here. All right. I guess maybe once you hit this first vine here, rocket boost straight up like that. And then you're already up here and you just have to keep moving like that. Also, here is where we are finally introduced to the background and the foreground. The interaction of the background and the foreground. This is pretty important, especially for the upcoming mini-boss fight. Right now we're in the background. Now we're in the foreground. And now we're in the background. So that's kind of the idea behind the layout and the stage design of this particular part here. You also notice I'm going through spikes here. That's because the spikes, you can clearly tell by color, are in the foreground. These spikes up here, they're in the background, so we actually get hit by those. And they make sure not to, well, pretty much everywhere you don't see a spike, I think is in the background, I think is covered by the one in the foreground. So we can just assume that there is a spike there if we can't actually see it. All right, so now I want to show this off here. But every time you land on any of these stationary platforms, you will also switch from background to foreground. And this is pretty important here because coming up is a mini-boss fight where the boss is going to constantly alternate between background and foreground because he's going to keep going through the waterfall every so often. So now I'm going to just land on here, and then I'm going to take a damage boost here. So here's the mini-boss fight. This is a pretty tough fight. What I'm going to do here is try to stay away from him for the most part and just try and rocket boost into him and fail. Wait for it. And that's kind of the gist of how to do this fight the safe way. Just gonna try and stay away from him, wait till you know he's in the same side of the waterfall as you. And you're like, yeah, like, when you don't have to think about it too much, it's not a hard fight. And that's kind of the idea behind doing it the slower but safe way, for newer runners. Now we have to take another break because it's now time to show how the quick kill looks like. Okay, I've already done a video documenting how my setup for the quick kill is. So what I'm going to do is actually show what to do if you fail the quick kill. If you want to go for the quick kill, I'm not going to stop you, but I don't recommend trying to learn that. That's a very, very tough quick kill to get. That's one that I screw up. And that's one that top runners can screw up. And if they can screw it up, chances are you're going to screw it up and not know why it happens or whatnot. So what instead I'm going to show is I'm going to show a little clip here of what to do if you try to go for it. If you have an understanding of the quick kill and try to go for it but fail, here's what you can do in case, as a backup strat of sorts. So let's see where it is. Yeah, I think it's this. So you can see I rocket boost straight up, and technically I could have gotten this quick kill pretty easily here, but I intentionally hold myself back on purpose to miss him on purpose. And then what I'm gonna do, if you don't kill him, the first thing you want to do is you want to throw on an attack and start charging up a rocket boost. And then watch what happens. Bam! With a single rocket boost and a single charged ground rocket boost, I end up getting launched all the way to the side I want to be on. And I think I can actually stay on the correct side as well. And yeah, that's kind of the backup strat, is that if you miss with the rocket boost, if you try to go for the quick kill there, like I did here, and you don't get it, you can always just kind of pitch yourself in the foreground here, charge your rocket boost, and then just boost right into the tail. Again, though, for a beginner's guide, I do not recommend doing the quick kill. But if you do want to try to go for it, that's your call. I don't recommend it, but it's up to you. Anyways, that's kind of the quick little clip involving the quick kill of the mini boss there. So let's continue on here. You might also notice there's these spikes now in my way. Well, they're not in the way in the foreground, so we're just going to skip all that. Also, those apples there, more and more health to grab if you were struggling a bit with that mini boss. Whoops. Whoa. Oh, that's kind of unfortunate. Okay, well, I was hoping that you would see the apples there. I guess I messed that up. Okay, well, I know what I can do. All right, Mike 89's run coming to save the day again. Let's show what I was talking about there, because I'm pretty sure I did not show it. But right after this fight here, I just oh yeah, by the way, that's actually a better way of showing off how to get a decently fast kill using the safer method there. Just kind of chilling out in the background there and trying to get rocket boosts where you can. And I believe Mike 89 will try to finish it with a little bit of a sword swipe. Right over here. And yeah, there he goes. Alright, so let's just rewind just a tiny little bit. Okay, no, that's too far. I want to show it off because I don't think I did. Okay, so these spikes here in the background. I just want to make sure that's showing it. Yeah, I am. Okay, good. I have to make sure now. But these spikes are in the background. They're not in the foreground. So make sure that when you're done with the mini boss fight, that you are always on the correct side. And in case you were struggling with the mini boss fight, here is some extra health you can grab, just in case. And that's it. That was really all I had to show. That's really all you missed. Now, I just got to get rid of this. There we go. And open that up. Good. Okay. So, now is this section here. I'm going to actually start by dropping down hugging the very rightmost wall there. And just rocket boosting straight down. You should always get down with a rocket boost there. Really no reason not to. And then from here, you can just kind of maneuver around. Do be careful. These spikes do 2 hearts of damage. Also, yeah, better to get rid of that bat. He's a bit of a problem. And then decide to rocket boost over to this side. There is a fast way of doing this. But it can be a bit of a problem. But yeah, it's really this section here doesn't really need much explanation. You just gotta carefully maneuver around the spikes. That's kind of the safe way of dealing with them. And then once you're passed through here, you can actually. Oh, okay. Well, I'm gonna show that off again, so I can properly show that. All right, so let's take what we've learned. Drop down, hug the wall. Get rid of that just for safety. Do a nice little spin attack there to get rid of him. Oops. Okay, that was wrong. There we go. And then we're going to just swim around, bob and weave around these guys. Oh, nice little fun fact that Vorpal just found out about recently is if you hold this thing, you'll actually attract this spike there. So that's something. Now you notice it's not following you. It's only really seems to be drawn to the sound of the rocket boost, apparently. See, now I'm holding it. Now it's leaving me alone. Now I'm holding it, and it's trying to follow me. So that's something to keep in mind. I actually never knew about that either until recently. But yeah, you kind of just want to take it a little bit safe here. These things do like 2 hearts of damage, each of these spikes, so not fun times. Also, when heading into this section here, try to make sure your rocket boost is fully loaded, or fully charged, because as soon as you enter, You can just do that and skip the whole thing. That's probably the safest way of dealing with that screen. Try not to go through that screen carefully. Just boost through it and you'll be just fine. So now we have this auto-scroller. There's really not much to describe. Anytime you see these exclamation pointed signs, that's your cue to just duck. Just straight up duck. Don't do anything else but duck. And, yeah, don't do what I did there. If you want to be really, really sure, don't stop ducking until you stop seeing spikes. Now we have all these pigs. Don't worry about the ones on the left side too much. They seem to have some issues. You can actually straight up let the pig actually run into you on the left side, and they actually can't damage you. Also, another fun fact. Whoops. Well, if you walk into them, they will hit me. I guess that's something that's important. You can actually rocket boost straight up, and as long as you pass by them, they actually basically once you're past where they are, they will automatically be knocked off their minecart. So coming up now is probably one of the scariest parts of the level. I am not going to tell people to try and possum hop off this thing. It's very dangerous. So what I'm going to do, wait for that, and then rocket boost across. Wait till, you see enough X signs, which signifies the end of that minecart section, and then rocket boost forward. And then you should be able to land on the second hut here and grab the banana. You can see that there was another building there. You could have just jumped off of that, but the momentum could end up having you fall straight into the abyss here. And this is not a fun place. I have only ever managed to save my run falling into this section once. And that was because I rocket boosted back up the opposite way of where I was supposed to go. So, not fun times. Don't go down there. Just rocket boost forward. After seeing a number of these X signs here. Yeah, these X signs here is what I'm talking about. Ooh, one up. I'm an idiot. I'm actually an idiot. Okay, let's do that again now. Sorry about that, guys. I was really hoping to actually show that off, but apparently I'm going to be an idiot instead. Literally baited into grabbing that one up. Thankfully, this is a pretty short section. We'll get through it pretty quickly. But, pretty much the rest of the stage doesn't really need much explanation. I do not recommend beginners to do anything really particularly risky in the last part of this auto-scroller. Okay, wait for the X's. Rocket boost forward, grab that banana, onto this minecart, and then duck, because now we see the exclamation points. And here you can see more minecarts here. Again, you do not want to take any chances here. You could rocket boost off of that second last minecart onto the one I'm standing on here. Still would not recommend doing that. It's something you have to play test around. And then this section here is kind of more or less the same. Just kill everything that comes from that side. This section here really doesn't need anything. Really doesn't really need explanation. Just kill everything. In fact, try and kill everything as much as fast as you can, because you could generate some lags. So now we got these chickens, and here's a nice little visual cue that I can use for newer runners. But once you're in the pretty much to the second X sign, you can just aerial rocket boost forward, and you'll land on the next hut. Like so. And then you jump on this minecart, and we begin the first fight. So, let's give a general idea of what this fight is all about. I'm going to just attack him the normal casual way. You see, in this first phase, he's just going to do this little bullet pattern here. You can actually find a little sweet spot to quick kill him. Oh, wow. Get out of here, dude. Alright. Oh, man. There we go. Yeah, you can hit his nose with the base sword. Does a lot more damage. You can see how much longer of a fight it is just by trying to hit him with the projectile. But the base sword is what truly does the most damage. I will try and play Mike 89's video. Hopefully he shows this off. But that's phase 1. Now phase 2 is going to be these arms. And the arms are probably the most difficult phase to deal with, casually speaking. What's going to happen is I'm going to first start with an upward rocket boost. And I'm going to stand pretty much around this position here. And then wait for this little curve part here to disappear off screen. And then I hit him like that. Then I'm prepared to jump slash and get a few jump slashes out of him. And then I jump into him. Now, I'm going to try to play this a little more safely now. I want to try to kind of just not really jump around, do a whole lot. But that's phase 2. I didn't really get to show a nice little safe strat here. And sadly, I'm not going to. So here is the here's the third phase. He basically will shoot out all these blue balls, and you can just kind of attack him with the sword projectile. Or if you're feeling really, really risky, you can just do projectile attacks like that. You know, and that's kind of the fight in a nutshell. So, now that we're done with stage 2, I'm going to show that fight. Well, I'm going to show, before I move on to stage 3, which is a pretty short level, I'm going to show off just one more thing from Mike 89's video that probably is necessary to talk about, and that's phase 2. Phase 2 is probably the hardest phase out of all 3 of those phases. So let's, let's see. Yeah, we got to change it to display there. Okay. And let's see here. Where does the fight start? It looks like it's here. This is at the very least where yeah, okay. So he's going to rocket boost forward, land on the hut, and let's see if he shows. So he's going to get really nicely up and close and take some immediate sword slashes. Now, you can be too far away from the train when he fires his first bullet, or you could be too close. My advice is be more cautious and be a little further away, because taking a hit from the blue bullet does, I think, about half a heart of damage as opposed to 2 hearts, which is what the train does. I think Mike here took a hit from the train itself, so that's something to keep in mind. And that's kind of the idea behind phase 1. Like, you want to try to do as much damage as you can. Okay, I want to see if how much health did he have? Yeah, he had 4.5. So he took a hit from the train. So he was too close that time, but, you know, for most beginners, probably better to be maybe even just a little bit further away and, you know, risk getting hit by this blue bullet here instead, because it does way less damage than the train itself. So just probably a good little piece of advice if you wanted to go for the quick kill in phase 1 instead of having to wait there forever. So now Mike 89 is going to be going into phase 2 here. He's going to do the same exact thing where he waits in a specific spot and rocket boosts up like that. And then he's going to jump up and start slashing away at this one here. And then pretty much from here on out, he's going to just stand right on this minecart and try to meet up with these hands as they swing down pretty much in the perfect aligned position to basically just hack and slash with sword and projectile. Like so. Like, look very carefully how he's not even jumping. He's just meeting up with the hands and doing a nice little sword slash. That gets him out of phase 2 relatively safely. Didn't take a single hit. And it's a lot less complex than jumping around and potentially missing hands or getting hit accidentally. Now, here's the important thing for the third phase is Mike here has enough health to be able to damage boost into the train itself. This is something that I don't recommend doing for newer runners if you don't know how to properly time your sword slashes to do, the best damage in the limited time of your iframes. But I think Mike 89 goes for that here. Yep. In fact, his sword slashes are a little bit slow there, but even with a little bit of slower sword slashes, he still had enough time to finish the job against that boss fight. And yeah, that's once again another very good display of some slightly easier strats to deal with on that fight. So that's actually pretty neat. All right, so that covers stage 2, and we're kind of going at this a bit slower rate than I wanted, but, whatever. It happens, right? So let's turn back now. Now we got to cover stage 3, and this first room in particular is a really mean one. It is one that I do not recommend people to do anything other than carefully and slowly. This rotating lava here will kill you in a single hit. In fact, I will demonstrate that momentarily when I want to show you the safer way of doing this room. Oh, I'm going to wait until that lowers. There we go. But you can see here, the lava, not only is it a one-hit kill, you also have this part of the foreground here just completely blocking where you're seeing. You're supposed to use that lava there as a reflection of sorts. And that's really your only way of knowing how to do this section at all. And that's what makes this room so brutal. So just to give you an idea, just to prove you the thing kills you in a single hit, there you go. So here's what you want to do. You want to, as soon as your rocket boost is ready and fully charged, you jump up and rocket boost forward. And then you'll land on this platform here. Then you jump up, and then you jump. Oh, okay, no, that's not what you're supposed to do. Okay, ignore that, please. Jump, and then you land there. And then as soon as you land there, you jump, and then you land on here. And then once you land on that tip of that uppermost part, further up this slanted incline, you ground boost so you can get through this section really quickly. And then we're gonna touch there and wait there. And then get onto here. Now from here, I think you can actually just aerial rocket boost to a different platform. So let's try. Oh, barely. Although this is kind of risky. You could potentially slide off, and that's bad. But yeah, you can actually just... What even bounced me off there? Okay, so I'm going to try to rocket boost. You see this platform I'm standing on, and then I can actually rocket boost onto that platform there. So that's a nice little bit of safety there. If you wanted to do it just a little bit faster than just simply taking it nice and slow, you know, that's one way you could do it. Now as for this section here, wait for this thing to start lowering, and then you rocket boost straight across once you... Oops, let's actually show that off a little bit better. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna walk off this platform like so, and then unleash. Oh, wrong way. Let's try that again. Like that. And then you aerial rocket boost straight through this corridor, and then land in this little pocket space here. And then as for this last little stretch here, watch this. You actually can ground boost straight through. You can actually ground boost on the lava itself and straight into the doorway. Of course, once you're out of iframes there, you're going to die if you don't go through that door. So it's a bit scary. Usually if you do that room the proper way, you can actually you should be able to not get hit by that lava at all. But again, it's pretty sketchy room. I do expect a number of deaths to occur in that room. So, like, my personal suggestion is don't do anything truly risky. So let's see what Mike 89 does for this room. I think this room kind of does need a little bit of clarifying. And so yeah, you ground boost here, jump up there, jump as soon as you can, then ground boost there. He does possum hop up to there, and yeah, you can see how he does that, and then he waits there, and then ground boosts there. So that's a nice little bit there. Let's just see that again, just to give people, a further idea. So then he lands on that spot there, then walks down, ground boost there, and normally I would suggest not possum hopping there, just to make sure you don't actually accidentally go too far and possum hop into the this little gap here. But jump onto that slant there, then jump onto that platform there, then jump onto this little platform right over down here, not down there, but it's supposed to be up here. And as soon as you land on this platform, you jump and then start rocket boosting forward, like so. And you should land on this platform right here. Yep, just like Mike 89 does right there. Now, he does something a little bit different here. I actually personally wait here instead of where he did. But, what he did is totally fine. I think it's totally fine. Because this does allow him to, I believe, get one more rocket boost. Yep, right onto this little ledge here. This is why this strat is a little bit scary from my perspective. Because now he's forced away. He has to land on here and not go too far, or the lava will kill him here. And then he's got to wait for the rocket boost, and then ground boost on the lava itself and into the doorway here. And that's the idea behind that room. So, now that that's covered, we begin the water room. This room is a little bit tricky. I imagine most people will probably have to deal with it different ways, and everything's kind of on a cycle here. You have all these fishes here. The sooner you get through this section, the better, because this section here is a huge mess with all these fishes everywhere, just constantly trying to get in your way. You can sometimes try to go and get damage boosted off things. I mean, this is a room where you're probably going to handle it differently based on, what fish patterns you get and where you get hit. But let's say you get hit once or twice. You probably will find that you're not in the correct cycle to go for like actual speedrun strats. But that's fine, because here's what you can do. Here's the normal way of dealing. Once you're past this little section here that's got this entire, tight little corridor of nothing but spikes, you can actually just jump over. Oh, okay, no, that's not what I was supposed to show off. I just rocket boost over that, and rocket boost over that, and then start swimming straight down. There's more elaborate speedrun strats involved with this room, but it's a little bit tricky to do and a little bit inconsistent getting the ground boost to get yourself to sink down here. But now that we're down here, we have yet another boss fight, and I'm gonna handle this fight a little bit differently. Kind of do something that I saw one casual player do. Whoops. I'm going to get rid of that claw for starters. That claw that I got rid of has to be gotten rid of. Do not let that claw live. Destroying that right claw drops this guy's health down ridiculously far. So getting rid of that claw is absolutely necessary. It's also the far more pesky claw of the two, because whereas this claw here will just periodically try to lunge at you and snap at you, this one here tries to home in where you're at, and it is a huge problem. So getting rid of that right claw is very necessary before you attack the main weak point, which is this guy here, the head. And so from here, I'm going to do a nice little safe strat that most you beginners will probably use, and that's just simply rocket boosting here. You can see how the claw is kind of just nudging its way close to me, but it's not attacking. When it starts slowly sort of inching its way back, it's getting ready to try and snap its jaw at you. So I think that's what it's trying to do here. Yep, it's trying to do it. So what I'm going to try to do is wait for the claw to snap, and as it's about to snap, I'm going to abuse some iframes from the rocket boost, from the rocket boost and subsequent ricochet off the head to have this claw go straight through me and not land a hit on me. Okay, I did it a little bit late there. Let's see if we can show it off properly this time. He is a troll. He trolled me big time there by getting close to me there. Okay, I'm waiting. Yeah, see, like, it's a little bit of a problem trying to... Sometimes that claw likes to try and get in your way. It's kind of annoying like that. But that's kind of how the fight goes. So, but there is a faster way you could learn to do this strat, and I will show, once again, Mike89's run in a moment here. There we go. Let's see. Actually, no, I'm not going to show the water room. I think the water room was one of the places where I think I had to specify what I wanted to show off here. Like, that's the ground boost I was talking about there, how he was kind of caught down the bottom there. So he actually doesn't do the rocket boost down below, but... But whatever, what he does is that he's going to attack with the sword slash onto this right claw here. Get rid of it as soon as possible. Again, I state how it drops his health significantly, as well as gets rid of the more problematic claw of the two. And then he actually utilizes this sword projectile to hit the head. This is a pretty tight window, but that's the faster way of dealing with him. It's something that I don't think most beginners probably want to do, though, but it is something to keep note of if you do want to learn off of that particular strat. If you want to learn the faster way of killing this guy. Because I think the projectile does as much damage as the rocket boost. I can't say for sure. It certainly does more damage per the time, that it takes to charge a rocket boost. But that's kind of the idea behind how this fight works in an actual speed run. Again, though, it's a really finicky fight trying to quick kill that guy. So I recommend not doing it for beginners. But it's there if you want to see it. So I don't need to show that section, because I'm going to show pretty much that entire section pretty much right about now. I'm going to get in here. And now we're going to take a little bit of a ride here. This is another auto-scroller. It is a little bit tricky, though, because this lava I believe, damages you for 4 hearts. So you have to be careful not to fall in. And this platform's a little janky. Like, I actually got moved a little to the right of it just from simply standing still. It's kind of annoying how that happens, but it's just something you kind of have to deal with. You might notice I'm draining my health down. I should probably stop doing that, because I expect most casual gamers to not do that. And don't do what I did there. No, I think probably might be better. Actually, what you could do is you could damage boost off of that bat and try and just head to the loading zone. That works too. But as for this fight's kind of odd. Kind of odd. I will have to show the quick kill in Mike89's video, because I have to show off instinctively. But watch as I'm holding left here. Yeah. So literally all you have to do is hold left, and you can, as long as you're hugging the board of the screen as the platforms start moving fast, you are able to actually just hold left, and you'll be just fine. in that particular phase anyways. Not true for the next phase. But how this fight works, he's going to spit out all these bananas and fireballs. You want to avoid if you're low on health and you're not feeling safe, grab some health if you need it. Normally this guy can be one-cycled. But I'm expecting most casual gamers to have problems. But in the case of showing off this fight, it is better to make sure to show off what comes if you do not get the one cycle. Oof, that was actually pretty close. That was actually very, very close. So, maybe not the best idea to emulate what I did there, having to constantly pause. But yeah, the idea behind it is once the pig jumps up, he will jump straight back into the fish's mouth, and that's all the time you get to do damage to this guy. He can be one-cycled, but unless you are in the proper positioning right away, you're probably not going to get it, so it does involve some abusing of iframes, which thankfully we will probably show off if Mike89 got it, and I imagine he did with that kind of time. So that's how the boss normally works, and that's what you probably can expect for as far as actual patterns are concerned. Now, I'm just going to wait for this results screen to finish up here, and then we can get all this cutscene stuff out of the way, so I can pause the game and show how Mike89 does the actual, how Mike89 actually does this fight here. Because I believe he gets the quick kill. Yeah, I think this is... Okay, actually, yeah, that's a very important thing to do. I think Mike89 has the better idea here for newer runners. You see how he killed that last bat there? During this last section here. That's probably the safer way to handle that last section instead of what I just did. So let me just emphasize that. Here's the last section here. He avoids that second last bat, then he just kills this first one. It does do a little bit of lag, but it's a small loss to take in the grand scheme of things. So here he actually ground boosts at a specific point. You can just hold left. It's as long as you're hugging that border. Okay, so right there, as you just saw, Mike89 took an intentional hit there in order to get himself set up into place, and that allows him to be in line with the weak point, which is this pig in the red armor. And now he gets 2 swipes, and then 3 more to finish the job. And that's how the one cycle looks like. That's what it looks like, how you quick kill that fight. You have to take an intentional hit and abuse some iframes so that you get into the proper position. That's basically how the fight works. So, now that we showed that off, I can get back to discussing this next level, which is a fairly short level, but there is a number of things that... Oh, actually, you know what? Before I actually take over, I'm going to actually continue showing Mike89's run here. Let's just make sure that I'm actually showing it. Yeah, good. I always have to make sure. But pay close attention to this first fight here that he's about to fight. He gets in a spot and just basically hits out the bomb as it's being thrown out. And he just hits the bomb as soon as possible to just force the bomb to connect to hit. Okay, he messed up the first one, but that's fine. He's got this. He gets the rest of this pretty much on lockdown. Basically, he's just hitting that bomb as soon as it comes out. That's the idea of this fight. This guy here is just going to throw a red bomb at you, and you have to ricochet it back and hit him back with it. It's some people call it the bomb tennis. They call it bomb tennis. But Mike 89 gets in these specific spots so that he can actually just quickly get that bomb hit and ricochet back to the boss himself. And that's how he gets out of that particular fight. Now, the thing with that fight... Nope. What am I doing wrong here? Okay, yeah, display capture. There we go. So, now we can take back the reins of the controller and show... the first thing we're going to do, we're not going to take any damage. What we're going to do is we're going to get into position here. But yeah, the idea, you can just kind of hit him as is. If there's a couple of consistent things about this fight. To start with, he always will throw 2 of these bombs. And the other inconsistent thing is that every time he recovers from hit stun, he will always respond with his own bomb throw. It doesn't matter if it's 1 or 2 or whatever, he will always respond immediately by throwing an additional bomb of some sort. And so I try to actually get a consistent chain with this, but it's kind of tricky to get the timing of this, so I would recommend doing Mike 89's strat. So take what I'm doing here with a grain of salt, but this is a little bit faster. And then as soon as the barrier leaves, after he leaves the screen, you can just rocket boost right into that little pit here. Or that little, ceiling there. So now coming up is a little bit of a barrel section here. The good news is that these barrels are kind of they're always the same pattern. Of course, I messed it up, so now I don't know what's going to happen. This stretch here is pretty brutal because there's no bars for me to hang on. Okay, now I should be fine. Also, here's some health if you need it. Do keep in mind there's wind actually pushing me back while this is all going on. So it can be a bit rough. But how to stop this whole thing? You actually want to touch this guy. But let's actually continue. Let's actually take an intentional death here. And I'm trying to show how it looks like when done fast. So as soon as your rocket boost becomes available, you do a ground boost, then an aerial boost, then a ground boost. Whoops, I messed it up, so now I don't know what's going to happen. Okay, there we go. And that's another thing. You might think you have to attack this guy when you get to him. You actually don't have to do that at all. You can just walk right into him, and he's just gonna be like, yeah, see you later. And another thing you might not realize is you might be inclined to land on this nose here and stand on it. You can just do that instead. It's totally fine. Everything's fine. You don't have to worry about it. And this section here, this is where most people will probably try to play it a bit safe, because these guys can probably get in your way and cause a lot of trouble. There's also an emergency 1-up in case you need it, and you definitely will need it because the upcoming mini-boss is one of the scariest in the entire game. But one fast way of dealing with this section, I find, is just jump up right at the tail end of this, do a high jump, and then rocket boost straight forward, and you actually land perfectly fine right in the middle of this guardrail here. You shouldn't have any problems there. And then you can rocket boost straight up, and usually nothing will be in your way, especially if you don't possum hop like a normal speedrunner does. But with that out of the way, now we are on to probably the single biggest issue of this mini-boss. This is a really difficult mini-boss, and the speedrun strats involved with him is a huge problem here. You can see that he's got this flame attack. Very tough to dodge. But you can also have these ads here. And that's kind of his line of attacks. Now I'm going to show you that same rocket boost earlier. Oh my god. I didn't mean to rocket boost that way, but okay. There we go. See? You're totally fine. You can grab that emergency one up, just because. And so now let's try and show off a number of ways we can deal with this whole entire phase. To start things off, get into this side here and start spamming sword and just get some extra damage on him. That's the first major thing. You don't have to worry about getting hit by him. You never should have to worry about that. As for this whole entire thing, you can intentionally... the ultra safest way of dealing with this whole entire phase would be to just straight up bait out his flame thing and just keep doing this over and over again until he starts doing this whole phase with the ads and start hitting him with the ads. It's not a bad strat, especially learning for newer runners. You can see how even just a single line of these ads will take care of him just like that. Now, let's show this fight again. Here's another way you can handle this fight. This is one that I don't think beginners are going to do in general, but it's one that you'll see in Mike 89's video, so better to just show it off. So, bait it out, and then rocket boost straight down. If you miss any of these rocket boosts, you're dead, by the way. Don't mean to try and scare you too much, but you want to try to hit you want to try to hit him on the very side of him, not these wings, not these wings specifically, but try to hit for this little the base of the wings, basically. That's when you want to try to aim for. And then you want to jump away when you know the flamethrower attack is about to initiate. And you can see that by doing that, you can actually get him out of that phase sooner. Of course, it still is a much safer option to just bait out the flamethrower attack and not bother rocket boosting down. And I imagine most beginners like yourselves will probably opt to just bait out flamethrower attacks and use the bomb ads to hit this guy. So then, it's I would play it caution. I play it with a lot of caution. This is a fight that tends to kill a lot of my runs because the speedrun strats involved in this fight are extremely dangerous. Like, I cannot state it enough how dangerous this fight is in a speedrun. So I would exercise major caution with this fight in general. Now, as for this section here, jump on this platform, onto this platform, and then... Oh, do not do what I just did there. Would be a good start. Alright, well, now we get to show off. We get to try and show off what you may not have gotten the first time. So do a little bit of damage. I'm gonna do a little bit of that. And a little bit of that. Let's do a little bit of safety here. Let's bait out some flamethrower. And then just finish him off with the ads. Okay, there we go. That should finish him off. Okay, so I'm going to jump on the first two platforms, let them swing to the next one, and then on the third one I'm going to jump up and then boost forward. Oh, actually, I didn't show it there. Well, that was the general idea of it anyways. That's kind of what you have to do, is just let the first two platforms swing, and then rocket boost off. The rocket boost left, totally left on that once you land on that third one. Of course, you don't have to do that. You don't have to really do that if you don't want to take that risk and just let the platforms get to that doorway. You can just do that instead, and that's totally fine too. And in fact, I expect most people starting off to not do even, the basic speed strats of that swingy platform section, just because of the fact that dying means you got to do that whole stupid mini boss again. And I showed the easiest way of handling him relatively well, so it is what it is. Now, as for this section here, this section looks more technical than it actually is. I want you to pay careful attention to this controller here. All I'm going to do is hold right and press my attack button. Watch what happens. Like, literally, that's all it is to that section. You don't even have to slow down. Just the sword swing is enough to slow you down. And even then, you could jump and slash and do your sword projectile slash and not even slow down at all. And you'll be just fine. You're going to make those cycles every single time. It's a very, very easy screen to deal with. You don't really have to think much about it. Like, test it out yourselves. You'll find out that I'm totally telling the truth there. And even if you do struggle with that screen, and, you know, there's no shame if you did. There's no shame in it. There is bananas here. Just for the added security of making sure that you have enough health for this fight coming up here. Now, I'm not going to hold the controller at all here for at least the start of this fight. There is going to be a weak point that will show itself eventually. We'll talk about that when I pause the game. But as soon as you enter this room, you're going to be in a safe spot the entire time. You do not have to move at all. Alright, so now he's done that whole thing. What is going to happen next is he's going to open up this weak spot right around his torso. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a damage boost. I'm going to try to take a damage boost right around when his arms... okay, so his arms are right now standing straight up. He's going to swing them back down like this, and then I think throw them up again. I can't remember exactly how his arms move, but what I do know is that he will swing his arms down. Around when his arms are kind of at this point here, basically like in a 90-degree angle from his body, that's when I jump up and damage boost into his body. This does 2 hearts of damage, but it allows you to get into his hitbox and start hacking, slashing away at it. And I mean, if you get to this fight, you should be at full health anyways. So there's really no danger in doing this. And you can see I've damage boosted into him. Of course, you gotta remember, in order to damage boost, you gotta make sure you're hit. Sparkster will get knocked in the direction. Wow, I butchered that statement. He gets knocked away from the direction. Holy crap. Okay. Whatever direction Sparkster is facing, if he gets hit, he gets knocked the opposite direction. That's what I meant to say. That's how damage boosting works in this game. It doesn't matter based on, where the momentum of your movement is. It's whatever direction you're facing. That's what determines where you get damage boosted. So keep that in mind. So now he's going to open his arms up. There, his weak point is showing. Couple, I think it's about five or six slashes, and you pretty much take out the entirety of the main body. It doesn't matter if you take an additional hit. I think it only does about, I want to say, a heart and a half, so it's not really a hugely heavy hitting attack. But once he starts exploding like this, you want to try and get to this room here, and once he fully disintegrates off the board, this guy right here, he's gonna be a real jerk and just run back and forth around the room in panic, because that's what he was doing prior to the machine showing up here, or the robot. But how this fight works, if you throw a projectile out, he will instinctively jump. Like I'm jumping over him, he's not going to jump at all. But if you throw a projectile out, he will intentionally try to jump. And he also does 2 hearts of damage, so you've got to be careful not to get hit by this guy. So how do we deal with this, you might ask? Well, if you jump and throw a sword out, he does not... Oh, I might actually die here. If you jump and throw a sword projectile out, he will not jump. You also have a lot of safety if you land a sword swipe into him, because I think by that point then he will be long past you, and then you shouldn't get hit by him. So what we're gonna do is kind of just meet up with him and just sword swipe him, kind of like that. Just meet up with him, and that's kind of the safe way of dealing with him. I do not recommend trying to kill this guy the fast way, because the fast way involves draining your health down for starters. That's not a good sign. And it also involves ricocheting off of the guy as the robot is fully destroyed and off the screen, and this guy starts panicking and running around the room. And it's really hard to control the fight. I really would suggest doing this fight, or doing the last part of this fight the safe way, like I just showed there. So I'm not even going to bother showing the quick kill. If you want to see the quick kill in action, just watch other runs and maybe learn off of that, but I would not recommend it, especially if you're starting off. So about an hour and a half into this whole tutorial now, but thankfully we get some time to somewhat relax a little bit, because now we have stage 5 here, and stage 5 is actually entirely an auto-scroller, and there's not much to this auto-scroller actually. We get to kind of just chill and get to see this game played. If you stay in this top little corner here though, to start things off, you can dodge the first wave of these missiles, and then, which was the ones going straight up. Then you have this row of 3 missiles going up and to the left. Once the third one shows up, you are actually safe to go straight down to the bottom here and dodge these rows of these 3 turrets. Now, of course, once you see these 3 turrets, then you know, and you're past it, you know you're safe, and just kind of chill up there. Try and follow them just a little bit so that you have time to react to this next pack of missiles right here. And that's how you deal with that section. And the bullet section here really is not a truly big deal. You can see its movement is pretty standard stuff. Like, I shouldn't even really need to explain it. So now coming up here is the pigs on the balloons section, which is pretty awful in the speedrun, because it has a tendency to take you out of cycle on a... it tends to have a problem progressing the auto-scroller faster. It seemed to progress it really quickly there, but sometimes you're not so lucky. I did have a nice little sweet spot for dealing with it by kind of just standing around closer towards where the top of these buildings in the background are. That's kind of where I like to position Sparkster and just start hacking and slashing. But there's really no wrong way to deal with the pigs in the balloons section. And as for this section, it's more or less the same. Can't really say a whole lot about this part. But stage 5 really is not going to take too much time for me to explain. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if probably about a quarter of the time is going to be spent talking about this guy right here. I guess before I proceed with the rest of this game, I'm going to actually show not Mike89's run, but a little bit of a pre-recording of how to casually do this fight. I'm going to see if we got the video here. Yeah, it looks like we do have the video here. Okay. So here you can see that we're about to face off. This is kind of the casual way of how to handle this fight. You can see I intentionally try to take hits. You notice that fire also does not hit me. Let me actually try to pause that. But I'm using the projectiles to already try and start ticking off damage from these little shield things here. If you're getting kind of Gradius deja vu here, don't worry. That's fine. I'm sure you're not alone. But you want to utilize that lag to try and somewhat control the situation and make sure that you do a little bit of damage with that projectile. That's really all you can do while he's on this side here. You see he's going to show up here and throw all of these lasers there, and then eventually boost off into that side there. And unfortunately, there isn't much you can really do when he's on this side here. But if he gets over on this side, you're able to land hits on him now. I also think doing this fight casually is a lot more dangerous than doing it in the speedrunning way. So that's why I'm kind of showing you the casual way of how to deal with this fight by just simply using projectiles to deal with them. So that's how I handle the first phase. The second phase I handle the same way in this little casual attempt I did, trying to show, what I would expect a casual gamer to do, or a, beginner runner of sorts, how they would normally tackle that fight, just abusing the projectiles and whatnot. That's kind of the gist of that entire mini boss. So, and I also think the more casual approach to that fight is actually more unsafe, because it's actually not very easy to dodge those lasers, and the fight's much longer too. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show how we do it in a speedrun. So instead of actually doing any sort of projectile hits, we're actually going to leave him alone and let the game not lag itself. We're going to let him take a hit on us, like so. And we're going to abuse these iframes, get in and start hacking and slashing him for days. Okay, this is kind of bad. But once those little ticks there are gone, the main damaging point is this pig right here. So make sure to position your sword appropriately to where his spot is. I think this is much safer. You can see I ended that with much more health than the other time. So that kind of just gives you an idea that you're just dealing with far less frustrations just by dealing with that. But that's that first phase. And then we're going to do the same thing to this phase. We're going to take an intentional hit and just hack and slash him. And that's how you deal with that fight. And there's really not much more to say about that fight. So from here on out, we're in the Pig King's castle, and everything here kills us in one hit. So really, there's only one way to handle pretty much everything from here on out, and that's just to avoid getting hit. One way we can handle this thing here, we can try and jump over it by using that projectile there. You can see we can just use the rocket boost to get over him if you're not feeling confident with your jumps and whatnot. I'm going to take an intentional death to him, though. You can see how he kills you in one hit right there, just to emphasize the point. But in the speedrun strat, we want to ground boost and then pass him up over this enemy. And where we want to unleash the rocket boost is directly in between this platform here and this one up here. Like so. Just like that. That's the speedrun strat of it anyways. But again, if you want to take the casual approach, you can always bait him towards that platform right over there. And just jump over him from there. Really, your call how you want to handle it. And then once you enter through the portal, you want to make sure you're holding up and to the right, and then unleash your rocket boost like so. And that allows you to get through here, and then you want to do the same rocket boost here. Then you want to do it again here, and that'll land you here. From here, you just kind of zigzag around, and then hold this left wall here, drop down the platform here, and then into the teleporter you go. Pretty simple. Now this time, these one-hit killing pigs with spike shields are going to be chasing us down in this room. But if you have had a hard time utilizing the ground boosting or the rocket boost mechanics, you're going to learn how to in this level. And because you really don't have a choice but to learn how to use it in this level. Otherwise, you're very likely going to die. Like, watch what's going to happen. I'm going to try and see if I can actually outrun these guys. Just doing this the normal way. Wow. Okay, I guess I will do that. Alright, well. I just had to see if I could do it. Apparently I can, so that's something I've learned now. You can do that casually. But let's try and do this the normal way. You could just rocket boost where you want to. In fact, thankfully I showed doing it without rocket boost, because now you know what to do in that case. If you don't know how to control rocket boost and can't go through these zigzagging places fast, that's no big deal. You can just diagonal boost around, and usually you should be able to ricochet to where you want to go. But if you don't want to do that, I've shown that it's possible to simply outrun them by walking. So now we got this next auto-scroller here. You just destroy this little pillar and you activate this whole thing. This is yet another place you can die instantly by being crushed. And so by being crushed, you would have to do all this all over again. Uh-oh. Okay, I'm fine. These sections here that I'm looking down, this entire corridor here, do not try to do any sort of rocket boosting straight down them. You will find that you'll end up getting bounced off this wall and then being bounced just a tight tidge into the danger zone again. And you could get crushed from doing that. It is much better to do a diagonal boost so that you safely get into these little... just so you can get to safety a lot easier. That's what I'm trying to say. There's also an emergency one-up, just in case you might need it. That one's pretty much... You pretty much want to grab that one anyway, because you can't really avoid that one without putting yourself in risk of getting crushed anyway, so... That's what it is. But yeah, you can see at the very end of this whole thing, it's all these particularly tight corridors. Again, like I said, diagonal boosts are the truth. Do that every time, you should be just fine. So don't think too much about it. Diagonal boost. Alright, so this room right here, I'm gonna show you what happens when you fail this room. I think. Well, actually, I'm going to show you what you're supposed to do normally as a casual gamer. You're supposed to use that platform there, and then get up to this spot here. You also notice that once you leave that platform, it eventually disintegrates and leaves it basically disappears. Not fun, because if you miss this rock, because the speedrun strat involved with this room, you have to... Oh my god. Well, you might have saw it. Yeah, I'm going to intentionally try to... What we have to actually do is we have to rocket boost straight up. Like that. And of course, I missed it there intentionally because I have to show that the platform is not going to be kind and come back. You have to start it again if you miss it. So where do we rocket boost? I don't really use a particular visual cue. Once I'm past that little gap down there that I passed right by, I then jump off and then wait till I start descending a little bit. Then I do a diagonal boost to up and right. And then I should usually hit the pocket corner. Again, you don't have to do that if you don't want to lose any sort of significant time. But it's a good room to practice because there's really no hazards that can kill you while you're practicing this. So it's good. It's good to do. Now, this section here is yet another auto-scroller, and really, I'm just going to say it straight up for any beginner runners, don't do this run in any way other than what you think is the safest way, because there is a particularly risky thing you could do at the very end of this, And messing it up means you're going to lose 45 seconds, if not more. So don't do it. Just do not do it. Also, don't go for the 1-up in this room. In fact, even I will not go for that. It's pretty tight getting that 1-up. Unless, of course, I'm overthinking it, but I just don't go for that 1-up. So we're coming up to the end here. And we're going to do this the nice, safe, slow way. Going to just use the diamonds as a directional. Like, you can diagonal rocket boost up here. And just get up to here. But again, you can see it can be a bit of a tight space, and you have to rocket boost correctly, or you will find yourself landing on the flashing spikes here. And in case you're wondering, yes, these spikes do kill you in a single hit. So, have fun with that. So here's a nice little thing with this room. Now we're on the boss of stage 5, and by simply mashing B and any button, really, you actually can force Axel here into the mech faster. What's normally supposed to happen is you're supposed to drop here, and Axel's gonna kind of stand here for a second or two, and then jump into this mech. By simply spamming attack or jump or any of these 3 buttons here, you will actually force him into the mech much faster. So that's something to keep in mind. But this entire section here is all nothing but a chase. This is also going to be a nice little test to see just how good you are with the rocket boost. They are not going to hold your hand at this point anymore. You have a very limited time to get through this section, and you have to kind of know exactly what's coming. But we're going to wait for this door to open, and we're going to simply do a ground boost like this. And we're going to keep holding left until our rocket boost charge is ready to go. And then we're going to jump and kind of do a diagonal rocket boost. Either direction, I guess, is fine, but I would prefer up and left. And that will give me the trajectory like that. Keep holding left until my rocket boost is charged again. Get to here. Rocket boost up and left again to... I mean, you don't really have to worry what direction you do here because this is a pretty enclosed area here. And there's no real dangerous hazards that can stop you from progressing forward. We're going to keep walking here. And once we're past this little incline here, we're going to drop down here. Right here. A little bit. And then we're going to rocket boost up and left again. Like that. And then it's going to sail us right here. And then we're going to... I mean, you can just pretty much run through the rest of this and you might be okay. Or you can run through this little corridor here and you could be probably just fine. Or you could rocket boost, that's also fine too. Like I did there. But the most important part is coming up here. You have 2 pathways you can take. You can go here or you can go up here. Going up here is, I think, is the fastest. I believe, because we can actually ground boost and attempt to somewhat slide, maybe even get a possum hop in, possibly, to get to the mech, whereas we do not have the option going this way over here. And the other added bonus is going up this way gives you a 1-up, so I would suggest going this route up here. And then get up like that. And then gonna ground boost here. You want to make sure you ground boost here, or ground boost where I did, because these platform here start falling as soon as you land on them. So keep holding left. And make sure you do not possum hop, make sure you're not going too fast, because you could end up sliding right past this mech, and you'll end up flipping off and dying into the abyss. But now we have landed on our little mech here. And now we begin our last fight in stage 5. This one's a pretty big doozy. This is also a pretty much the standard. You know how every single, character sort of franchise has their little quirk. This is this game's quirk right here. It is always got to have that mech fight with Axel. So you have only a few things to work with for attack features here. Any one of these buttons, I think, will attack with the punch. I don't know about my jump button, but I never bothered to test that. But you can assure that the attack button does do the punch, and you can only move left and right. It's also a little bit awkward trying to move in this big mech, so it does take a little getting used to, and I do imagine a lot of practice is probably going to be necessary for this part of this particular fight. I'm trying to learn it for the first timers. But the whole entire idea is to punch Axel's mech 8 times. And he is going to try and come up to you and punch you back. Now, of course, the first few punches are pretty easy. Like, I'm actually walking up, and you can see how delayed his punches compared to your reflexes here. Pretty much from the 4th punch onwards, it becomes much trickier, and the timing almost becomes a matter of trying to bait out the attack by simply doing a little bit of fake outs with him, as I'll call it. Like so. Like this time, after the third hit connects, Axel's reflexes are going to get much, much faster, like you just saw there, and you really got to start trying to fake out and bait out his punches so you can walk up and punch him back like that. Now, after the 4th hit, he starts becoming a lot more passive. And this means that he's sort of on edge now. Like, this allows me to... He's now entering the part where he's kind of wanting me to come to him, as what his AI is now been... He's now entering that particular AI where he wants you to come to him. And so he can respond by punching you, which basically means try and fake out these punches. And so we're going to try to walk up to him and make him punch us, but we're going to fake him out again, and we're going to punch him back as punishment. Now, after the 5th hit, he's going to start being a real... Oh, no! Okay. I was expecting him to retreat like this. This is where he starts to retreat. For a little bit. He will do this for about 4 seconds. And ideally what... discussing the speedrun strats, honestly, is something I would not probably recommend anyone to do. But... really, just the idea behind learning this fight is just to fake out his punches. Like that. 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 And of course, eventually, though, he will back off like that. Again, this is what he will do when he's at very, very low health. Or when he's, less than 50% health. But the main thing is to try and make sure to practice baiting out his punch attacks. That's really, really all this fight comes down to. Learn how the fight works. Practice, practice, practice. That's really my only advice, because the fight's simple enough. You only got one form of attack. You only have 2 directions you can move. That's really all there is to it. And of course, each punch does 2 hits to you. Or 2 hearts to you, so try to not be too stupid. But like I said, 8 hits will deal the finishing blow to Axel, and that is stage 5. So now that we're done with stage 5, we now move on to probably the shortest level of the game, which probably contains the longest fight of the game. So this is stage 6, and this is even a stage that has caused even more experienced runners some trouble. especially dealing with packs. The idea behind this entire thing, since we got a lot of lives, I'm just going to kind of show these patterns of sorts. You know, you have these little guys here, and then after that wave is gone, you got this wave here, then you're going to see another wave like this, and then yet another wave like this. And you got to kill and clear this entire wave and grab the apple from killing this entire wave before the next wave will spawn. So it's not very fast to actually try and let these enemies live, is what I'm saying. And then you have this problematic pack here. This pack, for me especially learning off, this was the pack that caused me the most trouble of the entire bunch, because learning how to effectively kill this pack really fast is a real challenge. It is a real challenge because they keep bobbing up and down, and it's very tough to actually handle them. So, and here's also the meteorite section here. This section here is a little more simple, but it can also be a very trolly section here. You got these missiles here that will come from behind. These slower missiles coming from in front. And then these missiles that have jetpacks on them. And they shoot these missiles. Also, after every single major wave of enemies, you will have these... You basically have this group of things surrounding you, and they want you to hit at least one of them in order to... Basically, in order to cause a specific sort of wave of enemies to spawn. Obviously, I hit an asteroid, which is apples, for whatever reason. It's not meteors, it's apples. But I mean, if you hit the enemy, you get enemy spawns. And of course, like any other wave, the faster you clear off all the waves off screen, or collect all the items off screen, the sooner you'll get to the next part of the run. Or the auto-scroller, this level. Alright, now this guy here. We're gonna let him do his thing, just to kind of show what he's capable of. Anytime he's holding up this shield here, he is invincible. You cannot hit him. But after he does the slower shield, you'll do that laser attack. Anytime he's not holding up the shield, you can attack with this thing. And that's an attack that's an attack you usually will not see in any sort of run. And I'll show you the faster way of handling this fight, because I am going to intentionally die. I do have plenty of lives to work with. So once he's down, got another one of these packs. This time we got enemies. This is a much better pack to get if you want to advance the auto-scroller faster, but you don't get health. Now, here you're going to have some pigs here kind of shooting at you, and you want to try to kind of go around the screen on the very borders to try and bait them out. And then you'll have Axel here take care of the pigs. You don't even have to kill the pigs. Let Axel take care of it, because you cause less lag by having him take care of it. Now this fight here is a real problem. You got these pigs being a real jerk here. Now you gotta deal with Axel here, and I'm actually gonna intentionally die here, because if I do kill Axel, I do stand to advance the game to the boss fight. Just kill me. Okay, so now that I've shown, because after you finish off Axel there, the stage is done. That's how quick this stage actually is. So now I've shown what to expect in the stage. What do we actually want to do in this stage? So first we have those first 4 packs of enemies. The main thing we want to make sure we want to do with the first 4 sets of 5 enemies is we want to make sure we're not touching the very top of the screen here, or the very, very bottom of the screen. Because what'll end up happening when you do that is you will cause these enemies... Let me just get into a proper position here. But you want to make sure you're not totally at the very top of the screen, because what's going to happen is, instead of those enemies going down like this, they're going to go up like this. You want to make sure that these enemies are going to go down, so make sure you do not touch the top of the screen. And then, you know... Because these enemies drop apples, there's really no reason to not, you know, just take hits and abuse iframes where you can. So the same thing applies with that pack. Grab the apple when you can, and then do the same thing there. And then just do the same thing there. Be sure to make sure you are not fully touching the very bottom of the screen and at the very top of the screen. And that's the most important part. And I also would suggest staying more on the very right side of the screen. You know, you don't have to be like at the very, very rightmost part of the screen, but try and be more towards this sort of right side of the screen right from the get-go. Remember, the pack that starts first is the one at the top, then the other one at the bottom, then one at the top, and then finishes with a fourth pack at the bottom. And that's generally how the first set of wave of enemies goes. Now, as for the one I talked about, the really tough one, where I'm going to position myself is just a little bit underneath this distinct line of, I guess, stars in the galaxy. I guess that's what it is. But I'm going to be just a little bit underneath that, and I'm going to be positioned directly right about here. And then I'm going to constantly swing my sword, and I'm going to listen for 2 hits connecting on enemies. So let's listen for it. And then as soon as that happens, once I hear those 2 hits, then I'm going to instinctively keep slashing my sword and hitting these next 2 enemies here. I didn't do it there, but that's fine. And that's the main thing, is that getting rid of that first set of enemies allows you to set up properly for the second group. Of course, I'm still not doing it very, very well, but it's something I can do much better when I'm not having to constantly pause and actually talk about what I'm doing. But that's generally the gist of how I deal with the very first pack of those 8 enemies there that signify that really troublesome pack. And as for the meteors, really just try to mitigate damage. You want to try to not take too much damage. Like, play it safe. Don't be dumb. Just try and be more in the middle of the screen. And if you want, try to avoid getting within range of these missile guys. And then once you're past the missiles, get in this bottom corner of the screen here, this bottom right corner here, and just spam sword. And then you force the first pack to actually spawn, which it was enemies, and I totally flubbed that, but you know, whatever. So now that we got them off the screen, we got that mini boss coming up. You got to see his attacks somewhat, but now you get to see how to kind of unleash a lot of nice quick damage on him before he gets to raise his shield for the first time. So what we're going to do is we're going to position ourselves, you know, not really directly below the score here that you see right here, and just above the same line of galaxy stars. Be a little bit above this line of galaxy stars here, and be directly below, aligned below the score here. That's the spot I stand. And then what's going to happen is you're going to see the mini boss come in. I'm going to pause. And he's going to come right in, hit you, and he's going to hit you right exactly where you want to be. Because he's going to stop right where I'm at right now is where he's going to drop his shield, and you're going to just go to town on him. Like, look how easy that was. That's how you deal with that fight. Again, I mean, I showed that you can do it with the projectile, but I think that's a much easier way of handling it. I mean, I don't know about you. Oh, that was a very bad pickup. Okay, so like I said, with this particular pack, I'm gonna actually when I get past that and the row of apples there, or whatever random thing that I get to start the next wave of the auto scroller, these two pigs are gonna show up and they're gonna shoot bullets at me. I want to make sure I'm in this corner here to sort of bait out the bullets. And then once I feel the bullets are getting close enough, I'm going to start veering myself slowly towards the bottom, this bottom corner here, like so. And then once I see Axel show up here, I want to immediately retreat to this corner here. So you're basically doing a lap around the border of this television screen. That's all you're doing. And then you just let Axel take care of the pigs, because again, killing the pigs causes lag. You know, let him leave. Doing any damage to him will not do... Well, doing any hits to him here will not do any damage, so don't do it. Instead, once he leaves, align yourself once again with the ever so nice visual cue of this line of galaxies / stars that is very visually represented here. And then you're going to not really spam the sword, but just sort of do a nice little decent rhythm of your sword attack. And you're just going to wait and wait until you start realizing your sword is connecting something. And once that happens, keep slashing, keep that consistent rhythm of slashing. Okay, actually, that's wrong. That's wrong. You want to do a nice little decently fast sort of sword slashing pattern, or sword slashing rhythm. But once you start connecting, you want to slow your rhythm down intentionally to what you normally would do if your sword starts connecting hits with an enemy. And you want to keep doing this. And then as this is happening, you want to start moving to the right. And this is to help bait out Axel to follow you. And it gives you distance away from the pigs. The pigs could be the biggest problem of this fight, because the main thing you want to do is you want to get rid of Axel. You need Axel out of this entire phase to advance it sooner. And that's the main idea behind it. And I use the galaxy line as a way to know where he's going to spawn initially, and just follow that line of galaxies, or stars here, as my guide to keep moving back. So here we go. Axel's gonna follow me, and then just by simply once he stops, once he gets past me a little bit, I move just a little bit more, and then I stop, because then I know he's gonna sort of move a little bit more to the right. Once he gets a little further past left of me, he's gonna move a little to the right, like he just did there. And then he's going to start firing off the missiles. And by staying in him and still slashing him, I not only am registering hits to him, I'm killing those missiles he shoots out. As well, by simply moving the way I did, these bullets you see here by these pigs became irrelevant. These guys were completely useless in this fight. And before I dealt the death blow to well, not the death blow technically speaking, but I dealt the blow to Axel to force him to leave. So now I just have to get rid of them, and we advance the rest of the level. And now from here we have one more pack of enemies / health that we can grab. So once again, we got apples, which is slow, but we also really safe. And that's kind of the nature of this level. I really kind of expect people to struggle with this level a little bit because of the random nature of what you can get from those pack of enemies. You may opt to do what I did the first time around when I showed the enemies kind of lining around, and just wait to hit a meteor to make sure that your health levels were fine. That's something you can do if you're really at dangerously low health. That's what I would recommend doing, is not sticking to this corner here, but waiting in the middle and waiting for the enemies to fully start slowly moving around you, so you can eye out to hitting meteor and force health drops. That's something you can do as a safety strap. And that's really all there is to the stage. So now we begin the boss fight, and this is a very long fight, and thankfully there is not much to this fight. One major thing to note, this main body, this main ship here does 4 hearts of damage, so I am going to absolutely go out, I'm going to just outright say it as it is, do not do damage boost strats off of the ship itself like I do in my runs. It's not safe, absolutely not safe, and this is the most costly place to die in the entire run. Mike 89 sort of, I think Mike 89 sort of does something different in his run where he kills one of the turrets, but I, on the other hand, what I'm going to do is I'm going to utilize these turrets to my advantage, and I'm going to use the turret's bullets to land some key hits with the sword slash. Let's see if it shoots out. Nice. If it doesn't shoot out, you can just wait out. Basically, if it doesn't shoot bullets, you can just wait there and just wait for the door, the weak spot to open, which is here, and just simply damage right here. But if the turret doesn't open fire on you, you can kind of just wait it out and wait for the thing to open, and then just you don't have to be too close. You'll still get hits on this weak point. It'll just be, a little bit slower, a little more laggy, whatever. Not really a big deal. And then for the second part here, actually, I'm going to see if I can hit him with the projectile here. Yeah, this... Oh, wow, okay. So this is something I didn't realize. You can see how this can be a real bit of a problem, but there's a way to quickly kill off that mouth, but you can see how very, very tricky it is to actually take out that mouth. So instead, well, actually, do I really want to show it off? I guess at the very least, I'm going to show off how to casually... what's going to happen once you kill off that mouth. He's going to open up the main body here. Again, the weak point is this little red ball right here. So now we can actually open it up. And you want to actually stay aligned with them, because all that's going to happen is there's going to be just these sort of lasers that show up here. And then I think once they disappear, I think they reattach or something like that. I can't quite remember how the fight goes. But that's kind of the casual approach to that fight. It is a little bit tricky trying to deal the blow to that mouth. The main body, though, that I just killed is a little bit easier. So that's kind of the casual way of handling it. I'm actually going to take an intentional death here, and I'm going to show the faster way of dealing with this. I probably should have recorded a video for this, but that's fine. It's something that it's just something that I should have accounted for, is all. It's fine, though. This is the second last level of the game. I mean, there's really not much really left to show after this level is over. Oh, actually, there's quite a bit, actually, but we probably won't take too long to be able to show everything off, since I'm pretty well prepared for this one. Alright, so I'm going to take out this turret, actually. You can see my projectile can take out all these ships here. And it's just showing out all these ads. And they will just keep throwing out these ads until the thing is dead. That's the casual way I guess you can take care of it. But I would suggest just taking the turret's damage and just fire at the weak spot with the base sword itself. Now for the speed strats for this mouth here, which was giving me problems the casual way. here's what you're going to want to do. While it's busy phasing in, line up Sparkster's ears to be just a little bit into the ship's sprite here, but no higher than that. Because what's going to happen is his sword will arc and hit the mouth as I'm doing damage while it's moving towards the right side here. Watch carefully. Like that. That's how easy it is to take out that part. And as for the final part, we have to wait till he stops moving up and down. Like so. And then the fast way of dealing with this, I've already showed you the casual way. Here's the fast way of dealing with it. Take a damage boost, and just, with careful sword swipes, just quickly kill the biting body off. You can see how it drained half my health. Not safe. Don't do this unless you're feeling really risky, or if your health is in very good shape. You know, it's not really much more to say about it. Thankfully, we will not have to display different things about this particular phase. I just have to hit this one weak point, and then I gotta make sure to bait out this laser. It's gonna try to track me down, and then I gotta hit this orange little ball here, and then after I hit that orange ball, he's gonna start bouncing around. Top corner is where you want to be, because he cannot hit you like he just showed there. He cannot hit you from that spot, and then he's gonna do the same pattern again. This pad thing here, well, actually, that spray and pray pattern might be the most, well, it's not really that dangerous. It does very little damage. Probably the more dangerous attack is this laser thing here. I usually like to go from the top of the screen here to the bottom here to bait this laser to go into this corner here. And then up like so. That's my strat for avoiding the laser. And then once the laser's gone, I expect the weak spot to open, and it's basically lather, rinse, repeat. There's really not much more to say about this fight. So pretty much from here on out, since this is a beginner's guide, I'm not going to drain my health, because that's something I do not want to... It's something I do not want to... any newer runner to do. Any new runner. I do not want them trying to drain their health, because usually when your health is very low, you tend to be pretty afraid of what could happen to you. But you can see after 4 hits to that weak spot, you know, you will deal the death blow to that fight, and that's stage 6. Okay. So that took a little bit longer than I was expecting, although I did need to explain how that level goes, and I do know there are quite a few people who have struggled with that level. Now that we're done with level 6, though, we're on to the last level of the game. Stage 7 is a real doozy. So right from the get-go, from this point on, press and hold down attack. That's the first major thing. Then unleash a ground boost as soon as you can. The sooner you do this, the better, because it puts this first fight, which I cannot remember. I call him the Pig King, but I think his name is General... I can't remember his name. So I'm just going to call him the Pig King. You saw him in a cutscene earlier. So there he is with his big giant sword. I want to try to get into position where I'm just a little bit past this particular pillar here. And then... I guess from here on out, I'll discuss kind of the casual way of dealing with this fight. But once I'm past this point here, one of the first things I did when I first started learning is not worry about how close I was to this guy in order to rocket boost straight up. Okay, so let's discuss the speedrun strats here. What the general idea here is with this fight is this guy has a huge he has a huge hurt box, much bigger than his hitbox. So actually connecting hits on him is actually very, very easy. So usually if you're close enough to him, just by simply rocket boosting up, you will connect hits with him with the rocket boost, as well as the subsequent spin damage that comes with it, which is a lot of damage. That is a lot of damage. Keep in mind, this is one of the few fights where projectile does no damage to this guy. The base sword also does no damage. You are basically stuck with rocket boosting and spin attack. Your charge attacks are the only way you can damage this guy. So, that's something I probably should have specified first, but basically, you're stuck with rocket boosting and you're stuck with the spin attack. Basically, any attack that can come from charging your rocket boost. And that's a big problem because the nature of this fight is... Okay, I just had to show this off, but basically, just by rocket boosting there, he's already instinctively ready to leap to this other side and hit me. And that's the problem with trying to rocket boost straight into him. I'm going to try to rocket boost into him. And also those projectiles are also basically a shield that prevents you from rocket boosting. So, casually speaking, when I first started playing this game, I felt my only option was to do a spin attack. Look at that. I did a ground boost and the upper projectile knocked me away from him. That is the problem with this fight, is that you can't normally do what you think you are capable of actually doing with this fight. This is a very, very tough fight, I'm sure. For most casual players, how you're able to handle this fight has to be handled much differently from pretty much any other fight in the game. So, since rocket boosting from afar is not the answer, I'm going to just show off the projectile here. You can see it's just tinking off of him. It does no damage. Now let's try a sword slice. Nothing. You can see it doesn't even block you from the projectile. So, that's fun, right? So really, with no actual way of doing any damage, it's a real problem dealing with this fight. So you have to kind of do things a little bit differently. So here's what I did casually when I first started running. I got into a spot that I felt was close enough, and then immediately spin slashed before he gets the chance to swipe his sword, which is usually going to signify the low attack. Oh, wow. Nope, never mind. He did it a second time. Well, regardless of what I did wrong there, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to unleash my spin attack right before I think he's going to do a low projectile attack. And I'm going to keep doing this. Oh, that was bad timing. But eventually I want to try to face away from him. Actually, no, that doesn't really matter. Yeah, just timing your spin attacks is very important. And I guess eventually when he's low enough on health, he's going to try to jump towards the corner. Obviously, this is very dangerous because the longer this fight goes on, the more you actually put a lot of risk on yourself. The good news, though, there is some bananas you can turn to if you actually want to get some extra health. And yeah, in case you aren't aware of it, there is a second phase to this fight. And that is another reason why this fight is very dangerous. And it's a real problematic fight for that reason. But like I said before, the main speedrun strats is to get close enough to him so that his hurt box extends out, so that because his hurt box extends further than his hitbox, you can actually rocket boost straight up and actually land hits on him with it. But of course, since this is a beginner tutorial, I mean, actually, you can try to do the rocket boost if you want. You do have to be close enough to him. The window of being able to connect with the rocket boost is a little bit tighter than with the spin attack, but it's also far less time that you actually need to do it. And that's the main thing with the Pig King fight. So, I mean, it's up to you if you want to have a slightly longer fight where the potential of taking more hits is a real possibility. You could, yeah. I think that's really the only ways you can really handle this fight. So, I mean, since I've already shown the effectiveness of the spin slash, let's show the speedrun strat itself. So, what I'm doing is as I've already stated, I'm rocket boosting straight up and letting the spin attack do its thing. And sadly, one thing I forgot to do is that I forgot to bait him out. But you don't have to think about that. This is a beginner's guide. You don't really have to think about trying to minimize him, slowly waddling his way to the middle to signify the end of phase 1. You don't have to worry about that. That's something you can learn from, a little more advanced strats where you actually take an intentional hit and then, go to the opposite side where he is and bait him to jump and then meet him up at the middle or some stuff like that. I'm not going to ramble on about that. Actually, I got an extra life. Let's show that strat off. I'm going to let this guy kill me. I have continues as well, so I shouldn't have to worry about that too much. So let's show that off and then we'll move on. 2 and 3, and then you see you get an intentional hit there. Then you jump up here. Oh, I hit that a little too late, and then I got hit, but that's fine. I already took hits anyway, so it is what it is. But that's kind of the fastest way you can deal with phase 1. Well, that's not the fastest way you can deal with phase 1, technically speaking. But you do want to try and bait him towards the middle if you did want to go for the fastest possible strats. It's really up in the air how you want to deal with this fight. This is going to be a dangerous fight no matter what you do. Like, trying to play cautiously is a real big punishment for, newer runners. So, I would suggest at least trying to either learn how close you can get by utilizing the upward rocket boost, or just try your luck with the spin attack and try to minimize the amount of damage you take. It's up to you how you want to tackle this fight. There's no right or wrong way as a beginner runner, especially. So now we're on to phase 2 here. This phase is more or less the same. If you do enough spin slash damage like I just did there, that should be enough hits. That should be enough hits with the spin ricochet slashing damage to actually only require 4 rocket boosts to get him out of this phase. Oh wow, that was bad. Alright, get out of here. Alright, so after you deal with that phase, okay, so normally with that phase, there are 5. You normally expect it to take like 5 rocket boosts to deal with him. The limb extension attack is also a big problem. So if you are a little concerned about that limb extension attack, just try to bait it out and just continue the rocket boost attacks on him, and you should be fine. Because right after this point, you got a banana. So we're going to grab that and we're going to move on. Now this next section here, you could technically rush through this entire section, per se. I will show that in Mike 89's video, but I'm going to take this time now to kind of introduce this enemy and how you might want to have to deal with them if you are forced to deal with them. So here's our first guy. So there's one attack. There are 3 projectiles. 3 projectiles will take him out. As for rocket boost attacks, 2 will take him out. So that's important to know. Don't use spin a slash against them. Use either the projectile or use the rocket boost. I don't think the base sword actually does anything. I'll test it out here. Let's see if it happens. Yeah, I mean, the base sword can connect hits, but I think much like the mini boss in stage 1 and the boss in stage 1, I think iframes initiate, so your damage is limited. So it's better to just not risk with base sword. I'm actually, instead of showing Mike 89 strat, I'm actually going to intentionally die and show the fast way of doing that room. Because you can actually skip. Oh, that problematic enemy, that was just done in order to try and prevent. It was basically a way of showing anyone who's watching up to this point anyway what to do in case you don't know what. Just in case you don't know what to do if they're completely blocking you off. Because sometimes, once any room involving that particular enemy becomes a problem, you're forced to pretty much deal with them. There's no other two ways around it. They do 2 hearts of damage. It's far too risky. So just know that 3 projectiles will kill them, that iframes initiate after each hit, and rocket boosts do make them die in 2 rocket boosts. And that's all you have to learn. Now, as for the speed strats of this room, you're going to start by jumping up onto here. And as soon as you land here, ground rocket boost here. You skip by him. Jump here. Rocket boost, midair rocket boost, and you get past this guy. Charge it again. Make sure during all of this that you're holding the attack button and only letting go to unleash the rocket boost, and immediately start holding this attack button down. That is the entirety of this room. Now you wait for the meter to build up again, and you will ground boost past this group right here. And that's how you can get past this room effectively quickly. And that's all there is to that room. Now, this fight here is probably the most complicated fight in the game, but there's a number of ways we can handle them. Let's see. We're going to start with probably the most basic strat, the one that probably most people somewhat familiar with this game might do normally. We're going to intentionally have our backs turned here, and we're going to rocket boost. We're going to do a ground rocket boost right into Axel here. Like that. And we're going to keep doing that over and over again. And once he starts initiating his rocket pack, he's actually pretty much free for the pickings to keep constantly locked in place. Because as soon as he gets hit while in stun lock, he's going to respond with 2 of these projectile attacks. So by constantly just ground boosting right into him, we can just keep this string here going. Pretty much the most basic way of handling him. He won't get the chance to do anything. Uh-oh. Yep, I messed that up. Okay, I've lost control of this fight somewhat. Oh, man. Okay. Yeah, you can see how sometimes if you even just miss one of those rocket boosts, you cause some serious problems. But you can see that it was kind of easy trying to control that fight. But, oh my goodness, come on, please, dude. I swear it's not this hard. But yeah, you saw that I was able to kind of somewhat keep him locked in place, and just really the main thing, don't do a standard slash. Always make sure you're doing a ground rocket boost. If you have to wait a little bit longer to make sure you've got the correct inputs ready to go, in place. That's really all that you have to do. But that's one way of handling phase 1. Before I show the... Well, actually... Do I want to show that? Yeah, I'll show the strap. So, one way of handling... sorry, guys. I was just thinking, do I want to show it or not? But what phase 2 is all about is... Axel's actually just gonna kind of throw these missiles at you. And we're just gonna kind of use the spin slash here to prevent getting hit. So this is kind of a weird place where it's hard to really sword slash to the left. And Axel's always coming from the left. It becomes hard trying to control this fight. And so this is one of the few areas where using the spin slash is actually very, very effective, especially for beginners, in being able to handle this particular phase. So that's the idea behind it. As for this phase, he's gonna just Axel's just gonna constantly keep coming back, and we're gonna keep damaging him with rocket boosts like this. And it's a little bit scary what I'm doing here, but I'm trying to make sure I don't take any intentional damage. Yeah, because usually when I ricochet like that, I expect him to react by doing that. And with enough rocket boosts, you force him out of phase 3. That's pretty much the entirety of the fight. But I need to show one more thing with regards to this fight. Actually, a few things, in fact. So, I showed you how you can... Okay, well, nah, I didn't get to show it, but... Come on. Come on, dude. Stop running around. Alright, there we go. Okay, so I showed you the old strat. Now you're going to see a different strat here. In fact, I'm not really showing this off too well, but basically what I'm doing here... Oh my goodness, how did that miss? Okay, we're going to have to show the pre-recorded footage because I am messing this up really, really badly. Not really sure how I keep missing him there. Or I could try this again, I guess. Alright. Let's start by doing this. I'm going to start by showing this strat again. You can see that you can just kind of chill out in this corner here. As long as you wait for the bar to fill, you'll always create that chain. Now. Come on. Get over here. And as for this one, we're going to try to use the sword's backswing to create a constant string of damage by simply jumping over his projectile and his sword and using our backswing to constantly chain hits. And we want to wait till we're about to land to hit him. Kind of like that. So, since I did not do a proper job of showing that off, I'm just going to kind of show what it looks like in real time here. I'm sorry to have done this. That was a very, very poor outing on my part of showing off, but hopefully this will better show that off. Let me just see here. Yes. This should be... Oh, actually, no. Here's the ultra safe way of handling this fight. And, I mean, yeah, I probably showed it off, and I probably don't need to show this again, but this is just to kind of show that it is always consistent. You can always just do this and just kind of park yourself in that corner and ground boost along the ground like that. It is kind of lengthy though. This does take about, well, it looks like the video is says it's about 46 seconds long, so that's actually pretty long. That's actually significantly longer than the other way of doing it. But that's the ultra safe strat that you can do if you don't really know how to approach this fight any other way. As for the other safe strat that I didn't really get to, well, I did get to show off at the end there, but not really as well as I should have. Here is the other safe strat that you can learn to do. This, of course, is much faster, but you also have to move a little bit to the left there, because every time you hit Axel, he does move a little bit to the left every single time a hit is connected here. So you'll see me move slightly forward there, like I did there just now, and just trying to slice my sword almost as soon as I land on the ground, and that way the back of my sword swing will hit Axel. It's still kind of finicky, and sometimes I do have a tendency to miss it, but because being that I have not done that strat in a while, the timing is a little bit off. So I do apologize about that, but that's the general gist of how to do phase 1 really safe. Now, I've also shown the safe method as well as the general idea of how to deal with phase 2 and 3. One interesting little thing that you can learn about this about phase 2 is you can use the spin slash to actually just a slight touch ricochet off of Axel and actually back onto the bar I'm clinging onto here and start slashing Axel for a lot of damage. So let's see if we can do this properly. We have to wait till we know he enters the screen at pretty much around here. We have to almost instantly react to when he's on the screen here. And you see how just as soon as I let go, I start slashing my sword, hoping that I will grab a bar and then start slicing away at Axel. And I'm going to keep doing that constantly. And yeah, there you go. Sometimes I'll get hit by that missile, but that's fine. And I've shown the general approach that you do need to use rocket boost in general to deal with third phase. Third phase can be a bit of a problem too for most beginners. I did somewhat show how I played it the casual way. Now you get to see the quick kill that's associated with it. Remember, don't do this unless you have 2 hearts of health. Not recommended. Not recommended, because it involves needing to take in a single hit from Axel, which will do a full heart of damage. But I'm not going to take too much time to explain it. All of the explanations regarding this quick kill are already on the guides page at speedrun.com. I shouldn't have to really go too much into detail with it. So I'm more or less just going to show off the quick kill here, just to show what it actually looks like here. Good. And that's how quickly you can deal with that phase. So, I mean, if you want to learn how to do that, feel free to look at the advanced strats regarding phase 3. And, you can probably look to some of the visual cues that I used there. Obviously, if you use emulator, do prepare to understand that you may have a little bit of a delay to your inputs, as well as, any potential reaction differences between myself and you. So, if you have to account for it being a little bit earlier, do that. It's totally safe to do that. So that pretty much should cover the Axel fight, hopefully. If there are any questions, please feel free to ask. From here on out, we're going to move on. We are very close to the end of this tutorial now. But now we have moved on to what is probably going to be the bane of every beginner runner, and that is the Hell Room. This room is going to be a huge problem for a lot of people. And probably for most, you're probably going to try to handle this room by simply just trying to kill everything that's in your way and not bother having to do any speed strats. And that's fine. Honestly, if there is any room where that is totally acceptable, it is going to be the Hell Room. This is probably the hardest room in the game to learn how to do in a speedrun. So I would recommend, especially if you're just simply learning the game, just don't. Just don't. But I will at least show the initial start of what you might want to do in the case of wanting. Okay, if you want to try to do Hell Room without taking any damage, though, if you want to do it faster than simply hacking and slashing away at these guys and not try to take any damage, I will try to show that off. But I've already shown the damage values needed to kill these guys, so I don't have to go over that. So instead, I'm just going to go over, probably the safest method and really the only method of how to get through this room without, going relatively fast and not actually taking any damage. So first, what we're going to do is we're going to walk to this guy. We want to bait him to come to us. Then we want to jump up, right over, and this is here. After this part here comes the really hard part. We have to possum hop over the second guy. And make sure that once you've unleashed this rocket, you're holding down attack while this is happening. So, there we go. By simply doing that rocket boost and then jumping, we jump over this mechanical pig right here, but we have to keep moving, right? Or we are going to get hit. And then we want to rocket boost off of this guy's head. Because what that will do is it will cause us to go straight through this guy. We ricocheted off this guy. Now we're going to ricochet off of this guy. We ricocheted off this guy and we're going to go straight through this guy right here. And that will allow us to land just a little bit past this guy right here. So let's see if that happens. Yep. So now we have to be very, very quick to react and try to jump up here and make sure you're holding rocket. Remember, hold this attack button. Cannot stress this enough. Please hold the attack button during this room. You want to try to do this strat, you have to be constantly charging that rocket or you're gonna die. You're just gonna die. This is not a fun room. But for the third and last boost, we want to hit this corner here and then bounce off. And then bounce off of this guy here. Sorry, we want to bounce off this wall here, then ricochet off this guy, which should bounce us into this portal here. Like that. It's sometimes it won't always work. Sometimes you'll go straight through this guy, and then take a hit and land in this corner here. I don't really know why sometimes that happens, but that is the general gist of how to do that room without taking a single hit. It's not the fastest way to clear Hell Room, but it's the fastest way of clearing it without actually taking any hits. So, if you're starved for health, that's really your only other option other than doing the usual, other than doing the typical hack and slashing away all the hazards and then clearing the pathway. Now, this room here is the last room before the final boss. You got all these diamonds as well as 1-up at extra health. So, say you're worried about getting a game over, you don't have to worry about that. You got plenty of resources. You should be fine by this point in the game. I have to stretch out. This has been a long tutorial, longer than I expected. But now, the next thing you want to do, you want to get into this crevice here, and then there is a portal right up, kind of diagonal, kind of sort of up in this direction here. Oh, nice. But to kind of clear out this particular... to get through this section here pretty quickly and, reliably, I would just jump up here and at the peak, just kind of stick to this wall here, and at the peak of the jump, just / here, and you'll always land in this little pocket here. It's actually a nice little... If you feel daring, you want to go fast, You know, that's the first way I handled this room relatively quickly, was just jumping up and then rocket boosting forward right on this little ledge here. I do something different, but, you know, it's a little more inconsistent for me, so, you know, always baby steps. Just go with something that, you know, is going to stick a little more consistently. But as for getting into this portal here, there's no hazards actually in this room. This is also a low gravity room, so your jumps are super high. You also notice the ghost sign there, so it knows exactly where you need to go, and all you have to do is just line yourself with the ghost sign and just rocket boost straight up, and you'll get into the portal. But let's say, for instance, you overshot that rocket boost. That's how you can actually get to that particular portal. Alright, so this guy here is the last boss of the game. And there are 5 phases to him. And explaining each of them is kind of, shouldn't really take too much time. And hopefully I will not make a mess of things. To start things off, phase 1 is kind of trolly. He will pick between... Come on. I need a frame where I can see... Okay, there we go. I needed a frame where I can actually see him. To start things off, he's going to bounce around and choose between 3 different spots to show his weak point. And this weak point is what you got to go and hit consecutively throughout the fight to advance the fight further. Phase 1, he will choose randomly between these 3 top parts here, through these 3 sockets here, and reveal his weak point through one of these 3 as he's bouncing around the room. So he chose the middle one there. I usually like to rocket boost here because it covers a little more options compared to pretty much everything else. But of course, doing that, sometimes you want to make sure you at least see the weak point where it is before you decide to rocket boost. So that's the main thing. Wait for it. Now you know. Wait for it. Oh, okay, I messed up. There we go. Yeah, so really the main thing is just to wait. Just wait till the weak point shows itself, and then try to find out. The weak point changes pretty commonly in that phase. So, you really... Oh my goodness, the sun. Why? The sun is being a problem right now. Alright, hopefully that will fix things. But the sun, or the weak point will change pretty regularly, so, you know, you can't really dawdle too much on the first phase. But, you know, it shouldn't be hard to avoid his bouncing around phase and just kind of eyeing out where the weak point is before you rocket boost into it, excuse me. But now we're on to phase 2 here, and phase is not really a phase per se. He's just kind of introducing his attacks. This phase is easy enough to avoid, so there's really no need to even discuss it. Once he phases out, he enters phase 3. And what's going to happen here? He's going to phase in, like so. And when he does, you want to start loading up your rocket charge. And he's going to start moving towards... he's going to kind of arc around a little bit of a circle. Like a tiny little circle. Or maybe not a tiny circle, but a bit of a circle or oval or whatever. Some sort of circular pattern. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait till he hits this particular visual cue right here that my mouse cursor is pointing at. And then that's going to be my cue to jump over him. And what that's going to do is I'm going to jump over him like that. And what that's going to do is it's going to bait out his attacks to kind of attack more in that direction, so to speak. Of course, he's doing this ring pattern, which will attack pretty much both directions. But, I mean, it doesn't really matter anyways, because the weak point... What's going to happen is... what's going to happen is the weak point will be opposite of where the attack is supposed to have been initiated. Now it's hard to describe this because he chose ring attack. Let's see if he chooses the laser here. There we go. Okay, so you'll notice that his lasers are dispensed to kind of point towards up and left and down and left. That means his weak point is going to show up in this spot right here. And I know this because that's how the phase works. So I just wait for it. And I just do this constantly. I just keep utilizing this particular visual cue right here and just jump over him. And it's a really simple way of handling this phase. You don't have to think too much about it. You just gotta jump. You just gotta jump, as he's beginning to shift towards you. And just bait out the attack, open the weak point, and do that one more time here. And there we go. And just like that, we've exited Phase 3. Now begins Phase 4, which is probably considered by pretty much anyone who has ever played this game to be the hardest phase. And it's pretty difficult, especially in a speedrun. It can be a little bit nerve-wracking. It's not actually a huge time waster if I mess it up either. That's not a huge time waster if I mess it up, but that's not the important thing. The important thing is, what do we want to do, or how does this fight work? Well, he's going to show up, and we're going to see a ring attack. And like the first phase before, he's going to choose between these 3 spots to show his weak point. And we want to hit that weak point, like that. And I'm just going to intentionally stay in this spot right here, and just kind of park myself in this corner here, and just wait for him to show up, wait for these rings. And so it's kind of hard to show because, the whole phasing, blinking every frame or so. But there's rings that start here, and then they have to swing up and around. So it's actually better to just slightly wait until this television screen, this pink television screen here, or the main boss's face shows up. That's what you gotta wait for. And so we're gonna do that again. I'm gonna wait for the rings to leave, wait for the face to show up, and just hit him. Now, as long as you hit that weak point before it closes back into the main body, you don't have to worry about how much time you're wasting, because I think how fast he phases out is kind of it really doesn't matter. He kind of has somewhat of a set timer of when he phases out. Like if you take a little bit longer to hit that weak spot compared to say top speedrunners, it won't matter, because I think the weak spot has to vanish into the weak spot before the main body phases and disappears. That's what I'm trying to say. So again, best way to handle this phase is to just take it simple, relax, chill out in this corner that I've demonstrated here, and you'll be just fine. Just use the projectile to hit that weak spot. If your reflexes aren't good enough, just get it on the descent. And it's just that easy. Just wait for the rings, jump once. Okay, that's a bad pattern. If that happens right there, if he chooses that really bad opposite side there, just kind of jump around, or just kind of jump over him and, slash him with the projectile as you're coming down, because once you hit him, the rings are gone. Nothing's going to hit you. As long as, that's the main thing, don't panic. But that is the end of Phase 4. Now we've now we are in phase 5, and this pattern here, this is supposedly supposed to be a problematic pattern, but you can see here by just standing in this corner here, or standing in this spot here, nothing can actually, the weak point will never change. It's always going to stay right in that spot. So, the best thing to do is just to keep doing that. Just by standing in the same exact spot and rocket boosting into the weak point, you're going to deal the hit every single time. And that's how you deal with the final phase. You don't have to worry about these rings being a problem. Like, look how fast these rings go. Like, this would be a huge problem if you typically would panic normally. But because because the weak point never changes, you can literally rocket boost the same exact spot and you're gonna land a hit every time. And yeah, that's it. That's the very final boss of this game. Oh man. So all that's left now is the escape. We are basically done with this tutorial now because all that remains is a single auto-scroller, and yeah, it's just avoid dying to the last boss, which should never happen in easy mode. That's only something you have to worry about in hard mode. After a certain amount of time, the boss that's gonna try to kill you here is gonna disintegrate, and nothing will remain of him. And that's going to pretty much, right shortly afterwards, be the end of the run. So, again, sorry this took as long as it did, and hopefully you found some benefit to learning off of this. I'm probably gonna have to cut this into multiple parts because of how long it took. But in reality, well, I guess is there anything I'm missing? No, I'm not missing anything. I guess before this whole thing finishes here, I do want to thank Mike89 for even just suggesting that his run was a really good benchmark for to kind of learn off of for beginner runs. And I was going to utilize more of his video, but it turned out that didn't happen after the first four or so levels. Funny how that kind of worked out that way, I guess. But hopefully this tutorial was not too long. Hopefully you don't have to really... Hopefully this was not having not too much information to register. Like, it's not too difficult of a game to come sit down and actually learn. There's really no big, really game-breaking glitches or anything like that. It's really mostly just movement optimization that constitutes the speed run, and just knowing the best ways of handling boss fights in this game. And I hope I at least covered the safest options of how to deal with most of these, most of the more tricky rooms, as well as easy, relatively consistent ways of dealing with boss fights. But if there was anything I forgot and left out, feel free to tell me. You never know, I could just decide to do this again. Something I'm sure will eventually change. I don't know. I was expecting this to go a little bit faster than I thought, given all the auto scrolls, but it's fine. It's all fine. But that is going to be it for the beginner's guide of Rocket Knight Adventures. I hope you've all learned something, and if not, I'm sorry. But that is going to do for me. I am Dagrin, and thanks for watching.